Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 15 of the Rings of Power Wrap-Up.
Folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm James Tauber, the Sage of the South.
And I'm Sarah Brown, Shield Maiden of Rohan. And we're both here with the Man of the West, Alan Sisto.
Thank you, Sarah. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the first two episodes of the Rings of Power that just dropped. We're, of course, doing this a second time, so you're getting this a little late, but we did have some technical issues. We're looking forward to getting this out for you, though.
So for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Rings of Power Wrap-Up, we discuss, analyse, dissect, and speculate all about Amazon's television adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth.
And, of course, we take deep dives into the lore behind the show, or maybe the lore that should be behind the show. We talk about our favorite themes, our favorite characters, and a lot more.
But we also make sure we have a lot of fun along the way, so we're glad you've joined us.
And we know you'll be glad you joined as well. Before we get into this episode, we want to remind you that if you'd like some company as you read any of Tolkien's works, you should listen to Alan's original show, the Prancing Pony Podcast.
For 6 years and 260 episodes, Alan and his co-host Sean Marchese walked their way through Tolkien's legendarium, from the Silmarillion to the Hobbit, and now they're in The Return of the King.
Hard to believe, isn't it? Folks, some say that the PPP is the finest Tolkien podcast this side of Bree. And while Sean has recently stepped down as co-host, I'm still there. And this season, I'll be co-hosting episodes with folks like the Tolkien professor, Corey Olson, Matt from the Nerd of the Rings YouTube channel, and Sean Gunner, the chair of the Tolkien Society. James and Sarah here are also going to be joining me for a few episodes each later this season. Frankly, there's no better companion for your extended trip through Middle-earth than the Prancing Pony Podcast.
But this show is all about the Amazon adaptation. So let's dive in.
All right. Well, before we dive in to this particular episode, we want to give you a little bit of an idea of what to expect from this show over the seasons, right? We're going to be explaining kind of a behind-the-scenes look at what we're going to do with the structure of the show. The idea is that we're going to, rather than try to sum up the entirety of an episode, we're going to do a very, very brief recap, like the thing you'd read in a TV guide, really high-level recap. And then we're going to go storyline by storyline. Each of us are going to pick a moment or two in a particular storyline, no matter how many times it gets broken up throughout the episode. The idea is that maybe it's the Elrond, Durin, and Moria storyline, or it's the Galadriel on the boat storyline. I don't know how we're going to break it up per se, in terms of storylines, but the idea is that we'll do that rather than scene by scene or shot by shot. Otherwise, this would be a 7-hour podcast and nobody would want to host it with me. And we're going to then take those storylines and run them through with relevant lore as well as the relevant themes. We'll probably also include a little bit of speculation. So that's kind of the structure or bones of the show. But we also wanted to let you know a little bit about the way in which we're going to discuss the changes in the adaptation. Because, of course, that's really, for those of you who listen to the show that are focused on the lore, that's where a lot of the questions are. It's where a lot of the concerns and interests lie as well. So some of you are going to know the name Tom Shippey, and if you don't, you should. He's a very well-renowned medievalist and Tolkien scholar. He's the author of The Road to Middle-earth and J.R.R. Tolkien, author of The Century. He's also been on the Prancing Pony Podcast. We're grateful to have had him there. And, of course, you may also know he was a consultant for Peter Jackson's team during the production of his adaptations and a consultant for a time at the beginning of Amazon's project.
Yeah, back in 2010, after The Lord of the Rings, but before the Hobbit movies, he gave a lecture called Tolkien's Book to Jackson's Script, The Medium and the Message, in which he talked about some of Jackson's changes. And his response to the film is genuinely thoughtful. He's quick to point out some of the unfortunate changes, but he liked the movies and he doesn't tend to nitpick them. In fact, he has some hilarious comments in there about the purists who do nitpick the movies.
Yes, he does.
Indeed. The lecture is actually really entertaining. You can find streaming audio and a transcript online, and we'll post a link to both of those in our show notes. The talk was based on an essay that's available in a couple of places. It's called Another Road to Middle-earth, Jackson's Movie Trilogy, is Appendix C in the 2005 edition of Shippey's The Road to Middle-earth, and it's also in the wonderful collection of Shippey's essays entitled Roots and Branches, which I have on my shelf, and it's absolutely wonderful.
It's a fantastic collection, isn't it?
Yep. So in addressing some of the changes between the text and the films, Shippey asks two questions. Firstly, was the change inevitable as a result in the change in medium? Is it necessary to tell the story in a cinematic medium? Secondly, does it create a different result from the book? In other words, does it miss the core of the original?
Right.
And these are the two questions that we're going to keep in mind when we discuss this Amazon adaptation. We'll think of the changes, especially any of them that bug us, and try to keep those two questions in mind. Are they inevitable changes? And do they miss the core of the original?
Now, before you think, well, who's this Tom Shippey guy to come up with a way to address these changes, these questions come to us from Tolkien himself, believe it or not. Now, decades before Peter Jackson and his team adapted The Lord of the Rings, even long before Ralph Bakshi made his cartoon version in the 70s with Aragorn's famous shorts, back in the 50s, Tolkien was approached by Forrest J. Ackerman with a proposal for a film with a screenplay written by a man named Zimmerman. Now, unsurprisingly, Tolkien did not particularly care for Zimmerman's script and wrote a letter back to Ackerman listing out all of his problems with it. And my goodness, the letter makes for some fascinating reading. It is published in the Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. It's letter number 210. It is both enlightening and hilarious, unless your name is Zimmerman. He really unloaded on this script.
I don't think we have time to go into detail about
the
many problems that Tolkien had with that script. But I would like to quote the passage that Shippey brings up, because it's key to the Shippey test we're applying to the Amazon series. Quote, "The canons of narrative art in any medium cannot be wholly different, and the failure of poor films is often precisely in exaggeration and in the intrusion of unwarranted matter owing to not perceiving where the core of the original lies."
Absolutely. Now, that is where Shippey's questions came from, right? If the canons of narrative art are not wholly different from book to film or TV, then how different are they? And are certain changes going to be necessary or inevitable to tell the story in that medium? But then the question comes up, if the adaptation misses where the core of the original lies, well, where is the core of the original? That's something that is still necessarily somewhat subjective, but I think those of us who've read the books and as many times as we have can, within some degree of accuracy, talk about the core of the original. And so that's going to be the framework that we use, is how is the film's result different from the book's result? I believe these questions are going to help give us something close to pseudo-objective criteria to evaluate the Amazon show, instead of just, we liked it or we hated it kind of thing. At least it gives us something to hang our hat on. And that's what we're going to use. We're going to talk about the idea of canons of narrative art as well as the core of the original as we talk about this. So when you hear us use those phrases, that's where they're coming from. They're coming from Shippey, but they're really coming from Tolkien all the way back in the 50s. So.
And what I love about this is it gives us an excuse to talk about the core of the original as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Quite apart from anything in the Amazon show, at the end of the day, coming back to the core of the original in Tolkien is just a wonderful thing to do.
That's right.
And it's always a refreshing thing. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's great because there are going to be times where the show nails it. There are going to be times where the adaptation really touches the core of the original and you have one of those moments. And when those happen, they're very special. So looking forward to that. Obviously, it'll also be a way for us to sometimes laugh at a few of the decisions, but we'll get to that. So I guess we should probably go ahead and start with a brief, and I do mean brief, episode recap. Let's go ahead and recap both, because this episode is talking about the 2-hour premiere, or both the first and second episodes. James, you want to start us off maybe with a little bit of a recap of the first episode, and Sarah, you can take the second one?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I just want to first of all say that they had a tremendous challenge in introducing us to so many characters, so many places. There's on the order of 6 or 7 different locations. I just did a quick check, and out of those 23 character posters that came out a few months ago, 16 of those characters have already been introduced.
Wow.
Oh,
which
my
is
goodness.
just a tremendous challenge. Everyone basically but the Númenorians and that strange figure that we don't know much about. Other than those, everyone has been introduced.
Wow.
And so, we started off with this initial prologue, which is, I think, setting up a lot of the motivation for Galadriel in particular. We get to see Lindon, the main home of the High Elves. We get introduced to the Harfoots, the predecessors to the Hobbits, and see how they live. We see the Southlands, the group of humans that historically had sided with Morgoth in the First Age. And then, of course, in the second episode, we get introduced to another location. Sarah, do you want to say a little bit about that?
Well, we get introduced to what might be one of my favorite locations, which is Khazad-dûm.
Yes.
And we have Elrond has the ultimate face-off with Durin.
Hammer off.
Hammer off might be a far better way of putting it. Yes, yes. The dude bros go at it in front of a admiring crowd.
Testosterone is flowing there, man.
It really was. You can almost see Deesa's eyes rolling at that one. So I think we can sum this up. There's 4 things, okay? So we get Elrond's friendship with Durin.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes a thing. We get a little bit more on the stranger. So obviously, Nori takes a dive into a flaming ditch and pulls a stranger out of it, and we get a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
We get more of the South people, and we discover that things are going on underground that are kind of terrifying.
Very.
And then Galadriel takes a long dive off a short boat and decides to go for an epic swimathon.
Epic. Yeah, this makes swimming the English Channel look like nothing.
Exactly. Yeah. And meets a monster. I'm determined to call it Fasti Tokalon.
And also a sea creature. No.
Yes, thank you. I wanted it to be a turtle, not a dragon. I wanted it to be Fastitokalon.
Right.
Or as we lovingly call him on the show, on the Prancing Pony podcast, Fastitokalon.
Oh, Fastitokalon. I like.
He has a wonderful Mexican restaurant with just some of the best food you could ever imagine.
As long as it's not stewed turtle. That would be inappropriate at this point.
That would be terrible. No, that name comes, for those of you not listening to the PPP, I had some epic mispronunciations in the first season. I know how to pronounce Taniquetil. I really do. But there were times in the first season where I somehow referred to it by its Aztec pronunciation, Taniquetil. And that's where Fastito Colon comes from. So...
So alas, it's not Fasti Tokalon, but okay.
Yeah, it's too fast to be a turtle, but boy, it sure seems to be inspired by that. But anyway, we'll get to more of that.
Speedy Tokalon.
There we go, Speedy Tokalon. Let's go. Well, he's fast to Tokalon.
We have digressed already.
There we go. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. We'll start with the very first storyline, kind of stands alone, right? That's the prologue. Just real briefly, of course, we get the young Galadriel, that moment with, I'm still going to call him Feanor, throwing the rock at the little paper boat. Or if it's not Feanor himself, it's got to be one of his seven sons, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's that. That's Curufin right there. I'm just almost certain of it. We get the flashback to Valinor, the amazing moment with the trees and Morgoth killing the trees. We get the sort of the ride of the Rohirrim moment with the ships all sailing off to take war to Morgoth. Made me think that it was sort of the way that Galadriel presented the story of why the Noldor were in Beleriand when she was talking with King Thingol, where she kind of glossed over the truth about the oath and the kinslaying and all of these things. It's almost like that sort of sanitized version of the First Age.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's interesting that there was, I don't think, any mention of the Silmarils in that prologue.
No, the first mention of the Silmarils was in episode 2 with Celebrimbor, wasn't it?
Exactly. So the entire motivation for the Noldor returning to Middle-earth was just to fight Morgoth because of which is for the tree, because of the
you killed the trees, prepare to die.
Yeah, exactly. We do, of course, also, I want to point out, get the relationship between Finrod, Galadriel's brother, and Galadriel, which is obviously setting up a very important motivation for Galadriel.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is tough. Of course, Finrod is my absolute favorite First Age elf for so many reasons. Everything from picking up the rude harp and playing for the men when he first met them, all the way to the end of his life in the dungeons of Sauron where he saved Beren. Of course, those are lore things, and for those of you who've never read the stories, I want to encourage you to read the Silmarillion, and you can just learn more about Finrod there. But you're right; it did set up that relationship. It showed sort of this, wise, leaderly, Finrod, who then was one of the ones to take up the battle and lead that charge against Morgoth. We did get that First Age amalgamation, sort of, right? They don't have the rights to that. I mean, I think we need to acknowledge that because they don't have the rights, they need to be a little more careful and a little more prudent in how they address these things.
Yeah, they've got to find some way of telling us that the elves leave Valinor and come into Middle-earth without having all of that First Age stuff that they're embargoed on in the Silmarillion. So we get their version. I think we're now going back to the canons of narrative art already, aren't we? It's a point where they have to give us a motivation for the elves to leave what is essentially paradise.
Yeah.
So, why are you going to do that? This is the motivation here. So I can see that.
I totally can. Yeah, I've no problem with that. I thought they did enough to kind of give us the little nods to those of us who know the lore, right? There were little hints of the Dagor Bragollach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. There were hints of the Nirnaeth Arnoediad. There were little subtle things that helped us remember, helped us know that at least the showrunners are aware of the First Age.
And I think the important thing looking at the prologue is to not try too hard to map what we saw to exact moments.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
I think it was more conveying. Yeah, I think one of the problems, I don't think we can look at a particular battle and try to work out which battle it was. I think it's really attempted a mashup to say this is what First Age battles were like.
Correct.
And this is what some of the characters were like. And so when you see the elves putting their swords forward, is that the Feanorian oath? Well, it's sort of alluding to that,
right?
But Finrod was there, so technically it wasn't exactly that. And there's a lot of that sort of thing. It's just giving these allusions to things in the First Age without there being a direct mapping that we can
exactly. Yeah, and the little boat that Galadriel was sailing, for example, that calls to the swan ships at Alqualonde, and you've got the brief scene of the Red Water with the elves dead with spears through them, and that to me was a nod to the kinslaying. So I think there's little nods for those of us that know.
Correct.
I think they're there to find, like little Easter eggs.
The question is whether it was clear enough to those people who did not have any knowledge of the First Age. It was very rushed, even for those of us who know the lore, and know the background. So it's interesting.
I watched the first episode with my wife, who's not a huge Lord of the Rings fan. She's watched the Jackson films once.
Yep.
She enjoyed them. She watched the first episode with me. She seemed to grasp, that motivation and the idea of, that compressed First Age. She didn't have any particular questions.
Did you have a PowerPoint ready?
I did. I also knew better than to present it.
No, so my wife actually watched it twice, and we did a PowerPoint presentation in between.
Of course you did.
She said she enjoyed. She said she enjoyed the second viewing much more.
Oh, okay. Well, that's impressive. Yeah.
Having seen the PowerPoint presentation.
That is hilarious. I admit I did pause it more often than she asked me to. In order to explain brief moments. Like I had to stop and say, okay, Finrod. So you see his body on the stone there, see the scratch marks? Okay, well, here's what really happened, right? So, we get, again, I mentioned those little hints and Easter eggs. What do y'all think of the physical appearance of Sauron? Was that not the most Jackson-inspired moment in the prologue?
Definitely, yes. That's a clear nod to Jackson. But we're going to see plenty of those, I think.
I think so.
Because I can see how they want, particularly for those who are mostly aware of Tolkien via Jackson's films.
Yes.
I think we're going to see little connections that help people to actually draw those together. What I see, and I could be utterly wrong, is an overarching arc where we've started in this prologue, and by the end of season 5, we will be kind of at the beginning of where Jackson picked up.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully expect the Battle of the Last Alliance to be the end of season 5. I hope so.
Right, so that then what you can do is you can watch the whole lot all the way through.
Oh my goodness.
Skipping the Hobbit films, cough.
Thank you. Yes, please do.
But then you've got actually a really quite coherent narrative. And if there are enough little nods to the Jackson films, especially visually, then I think it will tie it together. So I think we're going to see plenty.
And also maybe key dialogue moments. I think we're going to get to one of those, but there was a moment of, what devilry is this? That, I don't know about you all, but totally reminded me of Boromir. But we'll get to that. And then finally, I think that the last scene in the prologue, and I am taking a little more time to walk through the prologue only because it addresses such a large time span, was, of course, the body of Finrod on that stone, where we see not only the emblem that the sigil that Galadriel says is Sauron's, but we also see the claw marks on his shoulder, suggesting, for those of us who know, the possible death by werewolf that the real Finrod encountered. All right, well, let's go to the next storyline. James, what's the next one for us?
So picking up from what you just said about, well, literally picking up the dagger and taking on the role, we then transition to Galadriel leading a group of elves on the search for Sauron. And it's in Forodwaith, the northernmost part of Middle-earth. And there's this wonderful scene right at the start where, the elves are struggling to climb this ice wall, and they stop at this little ledge because they're exhausted, and they look up and Galadriel's already well ahead of them. It's this wonderful way of showing that there's no stopping Galadriel. She's just going to keep going with this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a positive and a negative, right? I mean, she's dedicated, but she's also arguably maybe a little obsessed.
Exactly.
Totally obsessed.
She's not really taking into consideration her responsibility as a commander at that point.
Yeah, and you see that more than once, of course, where she's almost, for a moment, seems prepared to leave one of them behind.
Yeah, that was a little disturbing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was super cold up there. And one of the things we noticed, and I want to make sure we mention because it may come up later, is this idea that the place itself was so evil that it prevented their torches from giving off heat.
Mm-hmm.
Not much to say there other than foreshadowing something, but it was a very interesting mention.
Oh, it's definitely foreshadowing something. And we'll come to the moment it foreshadows later.
I think we even knew that at the time, right?
Yeah.
Does it also relate to the One Ring being quite cool?
I think so. Yeah.
Yes, I think so too.
After it's been thrown into the fire?
Yeah, that wonderful moment when Gandalf throws it into the fire and then hands it to Frodo and it is cool.
Don't worry, it's quite cool. Yes.
It's quite cool. Yeah, again, a slight nod back to Jackson's visual for it, but there's going to be more than one visual about fire. Well, we are talking about Sauron here anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just loving the fact that Sauron clearly has enough houses that he can just abandon this one and go off.
This is his winter house. It hasn't been visited by housekeeping in a while. Yeah. He's got to have a chat with the maintenance staff for sure.
Yeah, they're not doing their job.
If they weren't melted into the wall, that's part of the problem. What do you think happened there, by the way? I mean, Galadriel says something about basically messing with forces that they don't know about.
Forces of the unseen world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a nod to the necromancy aspect of Sauron from The Hobbit. Is I think essentially what they're doing there. I don't know that we're necessarily going to find out anything more about that.
No, and that's okay. I expect the show to have some textual ruins, just like Tolkien does, right? I mean, I hope they do. I hope they don't explain every single thing.
Right. I mean, we know Sauron is a sorcerer. It actually says that in the text, and sorcery, along with other things about magic, were things that Tolkien was really cautious about. He did not like the idea of magic. There was something about that disturbed him.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go as far as to say that someone is a sorcerer, then we're looking at the worst end of magic, the worst end of something he already didn't like. So, I agree. I don't think there's any need to completely explain it. It's part of the feel, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly.
And I guess along those lines, it's worth saying right now, and I think we might all three agree on this, that no matter what we say, no matter what criticisms we have of the show or the episodes in general, it certainly felt like Middle-earth, didn't it? There was a lot of that sense of place, sense of time, and sense of, thematic material, I suppose, that gave it the similar feel to what you get when you read the books or even when you watch the Jackson films.
Right, but they do some clever things to make sure that we feel rooted in the world of Middle-earth. And one of the things that they do, of course, is that use of maps that actually takes us from one place to the other. And I think it allows viewers to understand the scale of the world in which we are, but also to feel rooted with those people that we're then introduced to. This is where they are, this is their place, and we get a sense of that as well. So I think that using of the visual of the map was actually a really clever thing to do.
I would agree.
Yeah, although I do have to point out that my first pet peeve watching it the very first time was when they do that sweeping across the map from Valinor to Middle-earth, that the fact that they don't have Beleriand.
Yes.
And if it's the first stage, so Beleriand should be there.
It should be there.
Yeah. And that just comes back to those changes that are necessary, right?
Exactly. It's not important to the story at all, I don't think.
No.
Yeah.
No.
We're clearly not going there.
Yeah.
No.
And whether it's a rights issue or they just felt that they would need to explain why Beleriand was no longer there in the Second Age, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, it's not important to the main part of the story.
Introducing an entire continent only to say it's gone now.
Yes.
Right.
It's kind of
Slightly problematic.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, if we were doing a first stage adaptation, 2 or 3 seasons of that, well, you'd have to have Balerion be there. But in this context, you're right. It's an added complication. To me, it actually reminds me a little bit about Jackson's decision to leave Glorfindel out. Like, why introduce yet another character and then you're never going to see him again in the story?
Right.
Okay, why introduce a continent that you're not going to see in the story?
Yeah.
You then have to just introduce the destruction of Balerion, which might even have exceeded Amazon's massive budget. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Well, there's bigger stuff coming up than the destruction of Balerion.
There's going to be plenty of destruction of land
Spoiler
masses
alert.
later on.
Spoilers.
Oh, goodness. Well, let's go ahead and get back to that storyline one last bit to talk about the symbol, the sigil that Galadriel discovers and takes as evidence that they need to keep pursuing things. What do we make of that?
James, you had an idea about that, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, there's potential connections to the eye of Sauron. It looks a bit like an eye, but also some people have pointed out that if you rotate it 90 degrees, it also looks a little bit like the mountains of Mordor, which I think is interesting. Whether they were deliberately going for that, I don't know. Possibly. There's certainly some interesting things going on with that sigil.
Yeah, there are. Of course, we skipped the entire "they have a snow troll" moment. But there was that battle.
And Gigwit as well. We skipped over Gigwit.
Come on, we have to mention Gigwit.
The mutinous Gigwit. Yes, let's discuss that. James, you've invented the name, so let's give it to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was so disappointed. So for those of you who aren't aware, when we first saw Thondir, I think his actual name. When we first saw him in the trailers, we didn't know what his name was. And I coined the name Gigwit in reference to Figwit from the Jackson films. There was a famous character in the Jackson films who was in a scene with Frodo, and he was nicknamed Figwit, which stood for Frodo is great, who is that?
Yeah.
And because this new elf was with Galadriel, I suggested we should call him Gigwit. Galadriel is great, who is that? And much to my surprise, the name took off.
Yeah.
It really did.
In online discussions. And actually, at the New York screening, when we first saw the episode, when the mutiny happens and Gigwit, essentially betrays Galadriel, somebody actually shouted out in the audience, "Gigwit, no!"
And it wasn't you. You promise it wasn't you, James?
It was not me.
Okay, I believe you.
That's brilliant.
That's my greatest contribution to the Tolkien community, I think, to this day.
Never mind the digital Tolkien project. Never mind the hours and months you've put into that.
It's Gigwit. It's all about Gigwit. Although he can't have that name anymore. I'm so disappointed.
No, I know. But that's all right. He's turned into his component atoms now, as we'll get to when we talk about the arrival to Valinor. Sarah, tell us a little bit about the next storyline.
Okay, so the next scene, what kind of made me chuckle with this is that when we saw the trailers and we saw these two dudes strolling across the hills with these massive antlers, right? Yeah. And we were like, who are they? What are they doing? Turns out, not much, actually. They were
exactly.
They were on screen for like 1 minute.
Yeah.
Can I just make a general point here that there are so many things in the trailers that so many of us spent so many hours analyzing, and they turned out to be completely inconsequential.
Yep. And this is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we've talked about how trailers are cut to deceive, and I think this is yet another example. They gave importance to those guys in the trailer, and there absolutely is no importance to them at all.
They had two functions. One of them was simply to be there, which turns out to be kind of strange because they're not expected at that time. So the fact that they are actually there is odd. And Sadok notes that. But I think one of the main reasons why they're there is to show how it is that the Harfoots can actually almost become one with the countryside, with the ground, with the earth, because they so successfully hide themselves in it that you do not know that they are there. And I think that actually was one of the most important things about introducing them to us, was to just show us how they are so much a part of the land that they actually disappear into it when they need to. And I thought that was actually really good.
Which very much fits the lore. You know, if you read the prologue, that's very much what hobbits
and
do.
even the Hobbit, right?
Right.
I mean, it's a wonderful reference to the ability of the hobbits to hide from the big people,
big
right?
people.
Yeah, but this is kind of like the extreme end of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. I mean, it wasn't just one or two of them hiding. It was an entire village.
It's an entire
pretty
village.
well done.
It wasn't just the people themselves. It was
No.
their homes and their cooking
Their
facilities
marketplace and everything.
everything. Absolutely everything was hidden. And yeah, I have to say, I'm in love with the Harfoots at the moment. Yes, I know that there is some discussion about what is going on with their accents.
I did feel like I was looking at a Lucky Charms commercial.
I do think, yes, it's a little bit more leprechaunia than Ireland, but there's also, I think, a little bit of an issue with giving travellers a stereotypical accent like Irish.
Yeah. There is a little...
Yeah, that was a little bit gritting of the teeth. But moving on from that, the way in which they look, the way in which they behave, their interactions, we've got some beautiful relationships going on there. We get introduced to Nori, who I think is going to be a great character. And I just want to make this point, okay, before we get any further. How wonderful is it that in each of the areas and the cultures we have been introduced to, it's a female character that's at the heart of their story. How unusual is that? How marvelous is that?
That was a comment my wife made.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've got for the elves, obviously it's Galadriel. For the Harfoots, we have Nori and her lovely friend Poppy as well, but we have Nori. Yes. For dwarves, we have Disa, and I just want to say how much I love Disa, and we'll get to that.
Absolute scene stealer.
She stole the show. Absolutely stole the show.
Oh, yes. I wanted to steal the show. I wanted to eat the scenery completely.
Please, just keep on stealing it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And then for the humans, of course, we have Bronwyn.
It was fantastic.
We have female characters front and center at the heart of each individual narrative.
And we'll see that in the Númenor thread as well with Miriel. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so happy about that because that is really unusual. So I'm just flying the yay flag on that one. Just throwing that in
now,
there.
Before folks get all upset about that and get all up in arms, I don't think any of those folks listen to our show, or at least if they do, they won't get 30 minutes into an episode. But, just a reminder, Tolkien may not have had a lot of women in his stories, but man, the ones he did were very much like these adaptation characters. Very influential, very knowledgeable, very powerful, very creative and solution driven. Whether we're talking about Galadriel or whether we're talking about, oh my goodness, there's so many, from Éowyn in the Third Age or Haleth in the First Age, whether it's Melian the Mile. Luthien herself. I mean, the women of Tolkien are incredibly complex, powerful, amazing characters.
Badass.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. These are, my woman Yoreth in Gondor.
Luthien herself. I mean, the women of Tolkien are incredibly complex, powerful, amazing characters.
Right. I have a soft spot for Lobelia.
Who doesn't after her, after the end of her story? So, yeah, that's the thing. I just want to make sure folks are aware that this is not exactly breaking lore to have amazingly strong women characters in each of the cultures.
No. No, but I am allowed to celebrate it because I think it's wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, back to the Harfoots.
Yeah.
We get really rooted in who they are and what their life is like, and the idea that they are migratory. This is going to be important, I feel. And also that there are dangers around that they are very aware of. It's part of the reason why they can just melt into the landscape.
Yeah.
And one of those dangers, of course, we get to see just very briefly is a rather unpleasant looking wolf that comes on scene.
Might even argue a warg of some kind rather than just a mere wolf.
Well, it's not a normal wolf, is it? There's no way that's a normal wolf.
No.
So yeah, I'm loving that, and I really think that we're going to get some joy and some real narrative interest out of the Harfoots.
I agree. I thought they were going to be window dressing for the story of the stranger, and that they were just gimmicky's too strong a word, but I thought they were basically just a way to get the casual viewer to feel like this was a story about hobbits again.
Yes,
a tool essentially. But instead, they've really developed a storyline that I think is going to work.
Yeah, but James can tell us about the Harfoots and why they should be there.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say the other great thing about them is that throughout both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, because there's so much focus on the hobbits, that provides the mechanism for explaining what's going on. And one of my concerns with this show, and you see it a bit in some of the other scenes, there's a little bit too much exposition of things that the characters on the screen already know. Right? You get, later on, we'll talk about it, Elrond explaining to Celebrimbor things that Celebrimbor already knows. Just for the audience's sake. Well, as you know, Celebrimbor, Fëanor was this is the hammer,
your grandfather.
That sort of stuff. And Tolkien in his writing avoids that.
Yes.
By so often having either a hobbit or Gimli or whoever it is, there's always somebody in focus that doesn't know what's going on, and so it needs to be explained to them.
Yes.
And I think that works so well with the Half-Foots. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to get used in that way, not just with the stranger, but in other respects. They encounter things that are new to them, new to us, and so they act as the way in which we discover and have explained to us the new things, rather than forcing it in the way that they tend to have to do when you've only got elves on the screen.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Can we just quickly mention Sadoc's book?
Yes, I was going to mention that because I think that's one of the reasons why the guys were wearing the antlers. How else do you, using a book that is essentially pictographs, how do you distinguish those from ordinary men? You have to have something really radically different so that they show up in that very simple drawing.
Right.
When I saw the antlers on the hunters in his book, I thought, well, that answers the whole reason.
And did you notice he had the 2 antlers and then a wolf?
Yep. Yes.
Was what the book had. As if to say, at the season where you see the hunters with their antlers, that's also the season in which there are potentially wolves about.
Yes. I want to know more about that book. Who wrote the book? How long has the book been around?
Right. It seems to be very important.
Is he the only one who can read the book? There's a lot of very curious questions there, but I'm whether we get those answers or not, doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but I think there's something there that's important.
It's just one of those things. It's another textual ruin, I suppose. Yeah. Well, I guess the biggest thing really with the Harfoots in this storyline is the stranger. It is the meteor crash. It is, Nori discovering the stranger, falling into that crater. Of course, that happens at the beginning of episode 2. And she discovers, lo and behold, like we just talked about with the torches in Forodoaith, that the fire is not hot. Thoughts?
Yes. Dun, dun, dun. That's got to be something important, hasn't it? I mean, you get the foreshadowing of that up north in Sauron's chill-out palace, where you can't actually burn yourself on the flame because it's so evil, it's so cold. And then you've got this moment with Nori falling into a fiery pit, and somehow that fire is not hot. And also worth mentioning is the fact that the stranger seems to wake up. The fire goes down, the stranger falls unconscious, the fire goes up again. What's going on with that?
Well, I was going to say that. I wonder how much of the fact that it is not generating heat has to do with the fact that it is in the control of the stranger or whoever sent the stranger. That this is a very controlled... It may not, like normally a meteor landing wouldn't be, but there's some sense of, this landed in a particular place. It's carrying this stranger. There seems to be a reason behind this. Everything seems to be quite deliberate and controlled. And this whole control of fire obviously becomes an interesting aspect of the stranger throughout that second episode, his ability to seemingly control the fire.
Yeah.
It seems like a hint of evil, right? Because of the whole idea that we encounter in Forodoaith. And there are some other suggestions of evil, like the death of the fireflies, like the incredible, terrifying moment where the wind, he speaks and he's yelling and the winds are coming and it's all dark and terrifying. But then there are similar hints that he's a good guy, right? We get the whispering to the fireflies like Gandalf whispered to the moth. We get, his genuine attempts to try to communicate with Nori. I think we're going to be intentionally confused for a very long time. I'm almost tempted to stop playing the guessing game with the Meteor Man for a while.
Yeah.
There are a number of things to see there, because at one point he scratches a rune into the ground and it looks very like a backwards Gandalf rune.
Yes.
It's definitely inverted. So what that means...
Which is another rune.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not necessarily that he got the rune wrong. It could be another rune. It could be the G rune flipped. The other thing is the words that he speaks, the Manwë,
yes,
which probably means what is heat. And that again seems to tie back to his relationship
to fire and heat,
to things being hot and fire. He's confused about whether the heat's there or not there. I'm not quite sure what he's asking there. But it's interesting. They're the words we understand him saying.
Ure and mana, right. Heat and either what or who, but presumably what. Yeah.
Yeah. Did anybody else think that the moment when the stranger kind of goes all like this and did that not look a little bit like that moment in the Fellowship of the Ring, the Jackson film, where Gandalf does that in front of Bilbo?
Do not take me for some conjurer
of cheap tricks. And I'm thinking, wait, Cheap Trick is playing? I want to know where Cheap Trick is playing because I'd love to go see that. But yeah, he's not conjuring up cheap tricks. I'm not trying to rob you.
I just think there's a number of ways in which there's clearly a whole bunch of misdirects going on here.
That's exactly right. So many misdirects.
Yeah, exactly. So we're getting pointed towards Gandalf, but there are problems. I mean, if it's Gandalf, why are the Fireflies dead?
Right.
And if it's Gandalf, why does the Sauron theme play behind the stranger at least twice? So there's all sorts of things there.
But if it's Sauron, why does he bother to keep Nori alive?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
There are other thoughts about, potentially being a different wizard. Radagast or a blue wizard.
Yeah.
I've even heard Balrog.
Yes.
I've heard Balrog as well. It's an interesting idea.
Balrog is actually one thing that I'm leaning towards just because of the relationship and control of fire.
Yeah.
I certainly think it's a Maya. I think it makes sense. In fact, I don't know of any theory where he isn't a Maya. I guess there's the Tom Bombadil theory.
Yeah.
But even some people would call him a Maya, even though I don't think that's the case. But yeah.
True. But most of the other theories, whether it's Sauron or Gandalf or a Balrog, those are all Maya. So, yeah.
Well, he came over on Maiar Airlines. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Well, so it raises a question. I mean, clearly the timing is set up to suggest that his arrival somehow relates to, we haven't spoken about it yet, but Galadriel's arrival in Valinor is timed. It happens at the same time, or at least it's portrayed in the editing that way.
Yeah, it does seem to be that meteor is streaking across the sky around the same time that the quote-unquote doors of Valinor are opening up, that the clouds are allowing the elves to return there.
If it is a Balrog, we have to remember the very first line of episode 1. Nothing is evil in the beginning.
In the beginning. Yeah, the only caveat to that I would say is, well, the Balrogs or the Valaraukar, which is my favorite word in the Legendarium, the Valaraukar were not evil in the very beginning, but they were evil by the time of Morgoth's fall, right? They fell with him before the creation of Arda and became these servants of flame. So yeah, I mean, I can see them stretching into that, but it'll be an interesting stretch if that's the direction they go.
We'll need to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we know enough yet to speculate much more.
Not enough data.
No, not enough data. But there is something very interesting that Nori says about the stranger. And this calls back to right at the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring and Gandalf speaking to Frodo when she says, I think I was meant to help him.
Yep.
Well, that definitely touches on the whole concept of fate, doesn't it? I mean, we've talked about some of the themes. And honestly, I don't know that we've discussed themes yet much. I mean, I think we touched a little bit on indirectly touched on pride when it comes to and lust for power when we've talked about Sauron and black magic. But this is definitely a fate moment, both fate and free will. Just that we often see it's never one or the other, right? She may have been fated or, destined to find him, but then it was her choice to help him, her choice to get him out of that pit and to start to communicate with him. And it just reminds me of all those moments of fate and free will when they combine in Tolkien's Legendarium. Bilbo fated to find the ring, Frodo fated to take the ring, and yet doing so of his own free will, as Elrond says. So very excited to see that. And it's a neat touch to that theme. You're right. It's going to be very interesting. I think she was intended to find him. What role that plays in the future of the storyline, obviously we have no clue, but it will be interesting to see. I guess we should wrap up that thread, though. I mean, I know we've talked mostly about the stranger in that thread, but let's come back to the Harfoots, right? Nori's dad has that really unfortunate lower leg injury. I mean, wow, that looked like I was watching a football game where they zoom in on the lineman's ankle when he gets rolled up. Yeah, pretty graphic break. And of course, they're a migrating people. And they're about to do that. They're about to head out. What do you think is going to happen with that particular storyline?
Well, I think it's going to bring up questions about how much, as a group of people, they care about one another and they're willing to sacrifice the whole for the one. You know, they know they need to migrate, but if that means leaving one behind, how are they going to deal with that? I think is going to be an interesting thing to watch. What do they do in those kind of circumstances? We don't know yet.
What differentiates them from, say, wildebeests,
Right, yeah.
leaving an injured herd member behind.
Yeah, calling out to another theme like friends and family.
They're going to take him with. It just means now they carry him instead of some of their stuff. So they're going to have to leave some of their stuff behind. And he obviously won't be able to carry anything. So,
yeah, and if they leave some of their stuff behind, how will they survive the migration? What will happen at the other end? Yeah,
It will be interesting to see this migration deal and how and where that eventually ends. We talked about how it'd be neat to see the end of season 5 be the Battle of the Last Alliance. I would also like to see by the end of season 5 the Harfoot settling down in the northern part of the Vale of Anduin. That would make sense storyline wise.
Absolutely. It's just one more thing I want to bring up, which is we didn't talk about the stranger's attempt to draw a map or form a constellation out of the fireflies. He seems to be wanting to be taken somewhere.
Yes.
Right? He has a destination that he knows about. It's actually shades of Battlestar Galactica. And so they're going to go they're going to go on this journey, right? I get the sense that Nori's mission now is I'm going to help the stranger to find home or whatever his destination.
To find the others like him and where he belongs.
Yes, to boldly go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow, hints of Star Trek too. I love it. That is going to be interesting. Well, do we have any thoughts on that constellation? I mean, it looked like it might have been the Big Dipper, of course, which is in Tolkien's Legendarium, the Valakirka.
Yes.
Set in the sky as a symbol for the fall of Morgoth.
And featured in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion.
What are the other names of it, James? Do you remember? I know it's called the Valakirka.
The Wain.
The
Sickle.
Yeah, the Sickle of the Valar.
I've got to tell you, I'm waiting to hear from my friend Christine Larson.
Yes.
She's traveling back from Oxenmoot right now, so she hasn't actually seen it yet. But I've told her she absolutely has to look at that constellation, then she has to email me and she has to tell me exactly what she sees there.
She absolutely does. And we may need to chat with her and get her on the show for a few minutes just to talk about that particular constellation.
I think she would enjoy that. But yes, if there's stuff to do with the skies are strange, I think that our best bet is Dr. Christine Larson, who knows how strange the skies can be and how to interpret them.
Yeah, if there's anybody in the Tolkien world who can address astronomy, it's going to be her. She's
absolutely.
Her talks are always so fantastic at these moods.
Oh, yeah.
If we're quoting Harfoot lines, there's a couple that I do have to get out there that I loved.
Okay.
When Sadok says, "This does not bode well."
Yes.
But my absolute favorite is when Nori says, "That's a tomorrow problem."
Oh, yes. I love that.
Yes.
And I'm going to have to use that whenever something's going, "That's a tomorrow problem."
Yes.
All right. Well, now that we've had a chance to talk about the Harfoots and the Stranger, we're going to go ahead and go to a quick break. But when we come back, we're going to go and visit Lindon.
We're about to get back into tonight's discussion, but we want to make sure you know that when you finish listening to this episode, the talk continues all night long at the Rings of Power wrap-up.
Our amazing listener community keeps the conversation going in all our social media spaces, from our Rings of Power group on Facebook to our Reddit community, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for Rings Wrap-Up. Be sure to follow the page, but also join the group to get involved in some great discussions on the show, on each of those episodes, as well as on each of our episodes.
You can also find us on Reddit at r/Rings Wrap-Up, and we're also at Rings Wrap-Up on Twitter and Instagram.
And folks, if you enjoy the show, please consider helping us out by giving us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. And please, recommend us to your friends.
All right, well, let's go ahead and move on. I can't believe we're already as far into the episode as we are, but let's move on to the Lindon storyline, right? We start with Elrond, and I love the moment he's writing a speech in a tree. It's almost as though I didn't want to be found. I don't like the fact that the son of the guy who saved the whole flippin' planet can't get invited to this meeting because he's not an elf lord. That felt a little weird.
Yeah. And who are the other elf lords?
Yes.
Later on, Gil-galad says, "We."
Lord. Yeah. Well, he's using the royal we.
Well, I don't know if he is.
We have decided you're going to work with Celebrimbor. And then he says, Lord Celebrimbor. So at least he's got a lordship.
I'm not sure that it's a royal we. I assumed it was the lords, the elf lords that met at the council that Elrond was not invited to.
Presumably Círdan Celebrimbor, because he's been addressed as Lord Celebrimbor.
Yeah, true.
But why he gets a lordship and
not Elrond anyway.
Doesn't, I don't know.
Poor Elrond. Elrond, my father is a star and my mother is a bird. He could at least be Lord Elrond.
That's a very
It's
good
interesting.
point.
He gets referred to as Herald Elrond.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't have that function anywhere in the lore until the Last Alliance.
That's exactly right. How are you a herald when this is our time of peace? We need no herald.
Yes.
Lindon has no herald. Lindon needs no herald.
One thing I will say about the speech writing in the tree is that we actually get a wonderful example where you see the Tengwar on the
that was beautiful.
And it actually is the speech that you hear Gil-galad give later.
It's beautiful, a beautiful moment.
Lovely attention to detail there.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's something we're going to see throughout, is that sort of attention to detail with the language, as they know that people are freeze-framing this stuff and analyzing it deep. And they want to pass that test, and that's certainly admirable.
I was just going to ask, what does everybody think of the, I'm going to call them elven nuns? What is going on there with the veiled elven women? That's slightly odd looking.
That was a little unusual.
Or this sort of two-tiered society, seemingly.
At least two, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we get those kind of divisions. Lothlorien is obviously, primarily Sylvan elves, but with, eventually, Third Age Lothlorien.
Yeah.
Is Sylvan elves, but with, Noldor and Sindar leadership, Thranduil as well. Sindar ruling over Sylvan. So I don't know if they're Noldor. Are they quote unquote lesser elves? What's going on there?
Yeah.
They are all female, it seems.
Yes. Yeah. And they get to go on the boat to, usher the rest into Valinor.
The ones on the boat seem to have a ceremonial role, and I know we'll get to that.
But do they go on the return trip back? What's the deal? Like, what's their role? Like,
is there a return trip? Yeah.
We'll get to that, but yeah. Let's keep going with Lindon. We end up with that moment with Elrond and Galadriel and Lindon looking at the tapestry.
Mm-hmm.
Elrond sort of talking wistfully about Valinor. Galadriel basically saying, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah. He's like, I've heard that this happens. And she actually makes the comment, not only that she's experienced it, she says, I experienced it every day.
Yeah, it's all I ever knew. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they have the talk about Sauron and Gil-galad's expected opposition, Elrond being a politician. I do want to pause for a moment to acknowledge what I thought was one of the greatest moments cinematography-wise in both episodes, was that moment when they're having that conversation. You get that top-down shot of Galadriel and Elrond, and you've got her dress sort of sweeping in that counterclockwise motion, the leaves, the golden leaves on the dark blue of her train. And then even off to the right was the ocean at the bottom of the cliffs. It was just, you could pause on that shot for minutes and just look at it. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
But yeah, don't push the High King, right? Yeah, cross him again. I know they're trying to build some drama. This is sort of like the West Wing in Lindon. In Lindon. I need to pronounce it correctly. But it did feel a little forced to have sort of this kind of intentionally written tension between Gil-galad and Galadriel.
I've softened a little bit. Well, only to the extent that I had extreme dislike for him initially. Yeah. The first time I watched it, I was really unhappy with Gil-galad.
I probably am still there.
I assumed initially that he felt that Galadriel was a threat to him and wanted to get rid of her because he saw her somehow as a threat to him. I no longer think that that's necessarily what it was. It's interesting that he still knows there's evil out there. If we take him at his word that his concern was that she would just fuel the flames.
Yeah, that Sauron's just going to take, a more extended retirement, but if she...
That's a little more acceptable than I think the alternative, which was he's just trying to get rid of her.
Which I think I still fall on that side. Okay, let's get to the most problematic moment lore-wise of the entire 2 episodes.
Yes,
okay,
absolutely.
because it's Gil-galad's speech that Elrond writes, which also makes me struggle a little bit with Elrond, but we'll leave that there because I'm sure it was Gil-galad's idea. His whole idea that, and as a reward, you shall go to heaven, for which I have the exclusive key.
Okay,
Oh,
so...
dear. Oh, dear.
Manwë on line 1.
Exactly.
Manwë on line 1. Gil-galad, you have a call? Yeah, that one bugged the heck out of me.
It did me too, and I've spent so long trying to make excuses, and I think there's 3 ways of looking at it.
Okay.
Of varying levels of frustration, I guess.
Okay.
The worst is this idea that somehow he has the authority to grant access to Valinor.
Right.
That's only one possibility. It's awful. I hate it.
It really is, yeah.
That's certainly the sort of the impression you get initially. But it's interesting that he does also, well, Elrond also says no one has ever refused the call.
The call.
Which suggests, as opposed to the reward or whatever, which makes me wonder. So the other 2 possibilities are that what Gil-galad actually means is the sort of second worst would be, I'm in control of the boats. I can't necessarily grant you access to Valinor.
But it's a long swim, so you might as well get on the boat.
I decide who has access to the boat. The third thing is that he's just relieving her of her duties in Middle-earth. So she's always, that anyone can always go back to Valinor, but they do have duties in Middle-earth that they can't just up and leave without sort of checking in with the management, saying, no, do you still need me? Because I'd like to
take an early retirement.
I'd like to take an early retirement. Yeah. So in my mind, those are 3 possibilities. I don't love any of them.
I'll add a 4th.
Yeah.
That he's gotten the message that the call has been given, right? You have been called to Valinor, and I'm going to send you there on these boats. So it's kind of a take on your second one, but the idea that he's gotten the word that they've been called.
I'm trying to think of the exact wording. How sure are we that he is actually claiming authority?
It certainly appears to be.
It seemed pretty obvious. I've pulled up the transcript, and here's what he says, and I'll try not to do it in my Benjamin Walker voice, which, by the way, I may have problems with Gil-galad. Benjamin Walker's a nice guy. I like him. He's a good actor. I enjoyed his portrayal. I just didn't enjoy the character. He says, and as a measure of our gratitude, these heroes shall be granted an honor unrivaled in all our lore, which is a problem in and of itself.
Yes.
They will be escorted to the Grey Havens and granted passage across the sea to dwell for all eternity in the blessed realm, the far west, the undying lands of Valinor. At last, they are going home.
Yikes.
So there's the language. It does sound like it's an honor unrivaled in all our lore, which is an issue because, of course, there have been other elves that got to go home since the end of the First Age, like most of them, actually.
Unless, I mean, we have 2 versions of Galadriel, one where she was banned from going back, one where she wasn't. Doesn't really matter which of those we're in because, regardless, it's not unrivaled.
No, it's not.
The majority of the High Elves took this choice at the end of the First Age.
Most of them went back when Melkor was defeated at the end of the First Age, and granted passage across the sea. So that's the question is he granting passage or is he announcing that the Valar have granted passage?
Yes, he could be just reporting on
that's fair.
What the Valar have decided.
Yeah, but he isn't saying that, is he? The Valar have announced, or,
Yeah, I would want to do that. If I'm the king, I'm covering my bases and saying, the Valar have announced, Manwë has said, this is not on my watch,
But can they mention the Valar?
Well, they've named a couple, right? I mean, Disa mentions Aule a couple of times.
Yeah.
Only Aule, I think, is the only one that's been mentioned so far.
Yeah, I think you're right. Aule is the only one mentioned.
So far, anyway.
I'll have to check the appendices to see. I won't be surprised if they're actually allowed to mention the Valar. But yeah, they're going home.
The Valar are mentioned in Lord of the Rings in book 4, 5, and 6.
Yes, that is
Appendix A and Appendix D.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because we get that moment. My favorite moment in book 5 is when Theoden is described as like Orome chasing down the field towards the orcs. And I can't wait for that. That's later this season. On the other show. But yes. So, yeah, it does seem like he's sort of overstepped his legal and moral authority there and making it sound as though he is the sole determiner of who gets to go back.
I did not like that.
I did not either. And I think the other reason I didn't like it wasn't just this claim of moral authority that he doesn't have. It felt, because it absolutely was, an exile. This is him getting rid of his most powerful political opponent.
Yeah, and a thorn in his side, clearly, because she's not doing as she's told. I mean, let's not even touch on let's touch on the fact that actually Galadriel is older than Gil-galad and arguably a little bit more important in the books.
Mm-hmm. True.
But here we have Gil-galad. Yes, okay, dude is High King and he wears gold lame well, but he's ordering Galadriel around like this. Clearly what we have here, as I think you were mentioning earlier, is this created tension. Back to the canons of narrative art. Here we have to have some kind of tension. We have to have a reason for Galadriel to end up where she does.
Exactly. How else do we get Galadriel to Númenor in episode 3?
Exactly. So there has to be
except that she was on a ship that she either leaves or gets wrecked or something. Somehow she has to be on a ship and end up out in the water and gets to Númenor.
Yeah, I mean, it conveys a number of things. We get much more of a clear understanding of how what a big deal it is to return to Valinor.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
What a big decision it is for Galadriel. It also brings us back to Galadriel's motivation and her sense of duty to continue the fight against Sauron. It emphasizes that in a way. I don't know how else they would have brought that across. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think it's serving some helpful purposes.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think it misses the core of the original to some extent, but it's one of those moments where I think there were some of these in Jackson's adaptations too, where they really were cinematically necessary. They very much were an issue of the canons of narrative art. And yet at the same time, they kind of did miss the core of the original. So it's, both. And you have to struggle with, all right, is the missing the core of the original here worth it, right? Does it give us enough benefit in terms of the narrative art thing?
And I do just want to say, I think we should maybe wait a few more episodes as well, because it's entirely possible that things happen in future episodes that explain things we didn't like in a different way.
That's absolutely right. And it's a good thing to keep in mind as we watch, because unlike the Jackson films, if we had watched 2 hours and 10 minutes of the Jackson adaptation, at least the Lord of the Rings adaptation, we would have already seen 30%, 28% or so of the entirety of the project. We have seen 4% of this project.
The way I like to think about it, but imagine judging Lord of the Rings based on a long expected party.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you read the first chapter of Fellowship and use that as the basis for judging the entire Lord of the Rings,
oh goodness,
people would say you're crazy. That's about the percentage we've
You're
seen,
absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a silly thing to do. Yep.
Yes, it really would. So I may not like what they've done with Gil-galad. I may not even like his mullet, but I do like the...
Leave the guy's hair alone. It's swishy.
Well, somebody ought to be like, Finrod has this really cool, short haircut that I actually like. I don't have a problem with elves having short hair. I'm just going to come out as sporting short hair. The mullet thing just kind of made me laugh a little. It's always snickering.
His hair has to be swishy the same way his gold lame cloak has to be swishy.
He does.
He wears it well.
He does wear it well. It's true. All right, so we've gone through that. It does feel a little bit like an exile. And then, oh my goodness, that moment in the forest of trees. Can we talk about how cool those trees are?
I was going to say,
that was so good.
We cannot, skip that scene.
We can't.
Visually, that was some of the color palette of the sort of oranges and reds in the trees, and then the green and the blue in the distance. The fact that we get the nod to Luthien and
I know. So many Easter eggs in those trees.
So many.
And just the dialogue between Elrond and Galadriel as well.
Sumptuous.
That's a great way of putting it, Sarah. It really is. Sumptuous.
Yeah. But I mean, that really showcased Morveth, I think, in terms of just when she says conflicted.
Yeah.
I just get chills.
I get chills just replaying that moment in my head.
Her reaction to just conflicted.
Yes.
Or that moment where she talks about the music sort of mocking the sound of battle in my ears, talking about being in Valinor. You feel for her.
Yeah.
I do wish there'd been a little bit more of a recognition that had she gone, she would get to be reunited with her brother. I think that's a missed opportunity.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm intrigued how non-book readers sort of take that whole aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
Of if they're going to go there anyway when they die,
why go now? Yeah.
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 That's a very good point.
So there's an interesting problem there.
Yeah, then you'd have to get into the whole idea of how long do you spend in the halls of Mandos before you get rehoused. That all depends on whether your name is Feanor or not.
Feanor, no.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. What I loved about, I love a lot about Morveth Clark's performance.
Yes.
What I love here is that she has it in the eyes. This is an elf who has seen and experienced so much pain, and you can see it in the eyes. And to me, she's portraying Galadriel as almost having PTSD.
That's exactly what came to my mind.
This is an elf that has just been through so much, and it's part of that obsession of why she's motivated. She's got to keep going. She's damaged in some ways because of it. That, you know, the things that she has done and the things that she has seen are really, they're stuck in her mind. She even says, you know, if she goes back to Valinor, she's not going to go back to Valinor and be at peace. She's going to take her pain with her. Therefore,
to last forever.
To remain. Exactly.
Yeah. Which is a nod, I think, also to that harkens back a little bit to Jackson's adaptation with the idea of, you know, our love will be evergreen. You know, if Arwen, if you just go back and you go back to Valinor and give up this idea of being mortal. I thought that was an interesting little touch. Elrond, I think, senses what you talked about with the PTSD, right? He's talking about how if you go there, you can be healed. Obviously, she argues against that. And I think from Elrond's perspective, he's just being a little naive, not being intentionally overly optimistic. He just doesn't know because he's never been there. But yeah, definitely sense that trauma and that very pained and damaged aspect of Galadriel. And Morveth does it beautifully.
I want to come back to her eyes when we get to the ship jumping.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yeah. You're talking about the moment where the single tear falls from her.
We'll talk about
Thank you. Enough said. No spoilers. We'll get there because that is one of the most heart-wrenching moments.
The looking at the camera. But we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
I don't know how you do that looking at a camera. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Let's wrap up that thread. I mean, obviously there's that incredible set of trees, and I would love to spend more time there. Who are some of the folks we've seen in the trees besides Finrod, of course? There was a very large hound. I'm gonna say that was Huon.
Oh, it was definitely Luthien and Huon.
Had to have been Beren and Huon.
I think that was Luthien and Huon.
Oh, Luthien and Huon. Okay, I couldn't make out.
I took it as Luthien.
Yeah, that would make more sense. I couldn't see whether it was a male or a female. I probably need to turn up the gamma on my TV. Yeah. Who do we think had the helm of Dor-Lómin there?
Yes, that's right. That was featured as well. Yes.
The dragon helm of Dor-Lómin.
Yes.
Which we see later as well.
Yeah.
In a different context.
Yeah, you're right. Oh my goodness. It was just a fantastic set of Easter eggs there. I loved it. It was beautiful. And of course, she says she's going to refuse the call. And then we get Lindon post Galadriel, and we're just going to touch real briefly on these. We get Elrond and Gil-galad discussing her departure. That's the moment also when we get to introduce Lord Celebrimbor, and Elrond goes off with him, and we start a new storyline. The only moment, and I want to touch on this before we move on, that's sort of a Lindon storyline is what we see at the very end when Gil-galad sees that leaf falling down. He picks it up.
When the meteor, just after the meteor comes.
Exactly. After the meteor is fallen, he turns around and he sees that black rot spreading. I mean, foreshadowing in a very obvious way.
Yes. Yeah, because obviously you then later on went in the scene down in Before-Dor, as James has called it.
Before-Dor. I love that, by the way.
I love that brilliant. Too. Thank you for that, James. We've got Gigwit and Before-Dor for that.
I cannot claim credit for Before-Dor. I saw somebody on Twitter.
It's absolutely well done.
So we've got the black veining in the leaf, and meanwhile, elsewhere in Middle-earth, we've got a cow with black sludge coming out of its udder.
10W30, man. That was really disturbing. Yeah. Well, and that's a really good transition to that particular storyline, right? We have 3 more storylines to talk about. Somehow we're going to try to get these all in the next 45 to 50 minutes. We want to talk about the entire Southlands thread, Galadriel's journey to and from Valinor, and of course the Elrond and Celebrimbor and Moria line. So let's start real briefly with the Southlands. I've called him that forever, but it's really Arondir. So we'll get the pronunciation right. It's Arondir. Arondir arrives into the village. He has that little chat with the barkeep, talking about the poisoning. We get a real strong glimpse of the racial tension with the locals. We also get Arondir being very cool under pressure. very unflappable, right? I mean, he takes what that guy has to, that young guy has to dish out and yell at him, including the racist names. And yet he also saves him from getting knocked out by the barkeep. He's just chill and absolutely unflappable. I like that. Then we get that romantic tension with Bronwyn. Should we talk a little bit about that relationship?
Before we do that, can I just come back to the sort of the racial tension with the elves? Because I think it's really interesting because on the one hand, there's racism in both directions, as well as this essentially a military occupation of sorts going on, right? So you have a community of people that are being, quote unquote, protected. Turns out they're more being watched, certainly in the eyes of other elves, because they're untrusted. It's not that they're being protected, it's they're the ones being watched. And so you get this suspicion, and there's a tremendous amount of resentment from the humans that they're still being blamed for the sins of their fathers. And then there's the name calling of the elves by the humans as well. So it's a really interesting dynamic there, I think.
Yeah. And one that I hope we see more of. I don't know how much we will since the elves are leaving, but I'm sure we'll see more.
So just on that point, why do people think Gil-galad is recalling them?
I know, I thought the same thing.
That doesn't make sense to me.
What authority does Gil-galad have over these elves?
Right. These are Sylvan elves.
That's like the president of the United States recalling French troops from Syria or something. I mean, he's
still the High King over the elves in Middle-earth.
Of the Noldor. I don't know that he's
of the Noldor.
I think he's still, the High King, the fact that I think the High King refers to the fact that he does rank above Thranduil and I don't know who Arondir would ultimately.
He's a Sylvan elf, isn't he?
Well, no, I don't know that we have any names of who the kings are of the various other groups of elves. I mean, I suppose one could think of it as that they are allied to the Noldor and that they partner with the Noldor because, of course, the Noldor don't really have any forces down here in the south.
I think this is an example of a simplification just for storytelling.
We can't introduce too many elven kings here.
It's like time compression, but in this case, it's sort of
faction compression.
Levels of management. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We're flattening the organization. That's what we're doing. We're going with a non-hierarchical, layout.
Simplifying the management structure.
Exactly. We're not even going to have a CEO anymore. We're just going to have, a High King. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, they already have, as you pointed out earlier, introduced, what did you say, 19 of the 26 characters in a single 16?
16 of 23.
16 of 23. That's a lot. They've already introduced 2/3 of the characters. They've already introduced all but one of the locales. To then introduce multiple factions of the elves and to talk about the tension between those groups is really an unnecessary thing. And it's perhaps, canon of narrative art that you have to simplify that. We'll buy that for a little bit.
It was already moving quite quickly without adding anything else.
Boy, if they had to stop and explain Sylvan elves, that would be a problem.
The last thing I just want to mention very briefly, because it does actually point to what we were talking about with this elven occupation of these lands. When they're talking about it, when Arondir is talking about it with his commander, and the commander was saying, we're not looking at these people because of what they did, but because of who they are now. And I think that actually points to the fact that elves, of course, they've been there a long time. Arondir himself has been there for, 79 years?
79 years.
Yeah. So I think, we get a similar scene actually between Elrond and Durin when we get to that, where Durin says, you've missed 20 years of my life. And for Elrond, it was like yesterday.
It was like, has it only been 20 years?
He says that, yes. Exactly. Now, here with these elves who are occupying these lands and overseeing the humans are like, for goodness sake, this is generations ago. Why are you still watching us? Whereas for the elves, it's yesterday.
Yeah.
So they haven't moved on because they don't. For them, it's like, yesterday for them. It happened such a short time ago for them. But for the humans living there, this is generations past.
Yeah, they can't remember anybody who remembers those days.
Right. So this is a breeding resentment. So you can kind of see why they're not exactly happy about having these soldiers in amongst them, because they feel like they're being watched. And that doesn't mean to say that some of them might not turn to the dark side or anything like that.
I think it's pretty clear some are going to.
Exactly. But here's the thing. What is the motivation to be a good person and not even think about the dark side if the people are watching you, if the elves are watching you, assuming that that is who you are anyway?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, then you end up with a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. You think I'm a bad guy? Fine, I'll be a bad guy. Yeah.
Yes, up yours. I'll do it anyway. Yeah.
Especially because what are your other options? I mean, the elves are clearly not interested in, allying with you.
Or helping them.
They're just here to watch you.
Right.
And unless you, start worshiping a Iluvatar? I mean, what do they have to do to earn the elves' respect at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't mean to imply that it was only the humans who were making a bad choice here, certainly. Yeah, they're, the elves are definitely a military presence here that's unwarranted, or at least unwanted, if not unwarranted yet.
It's unwanted, yeah. The problem is that lack of understanding of time for elves. They have a different concept of time, and that's the heart of the problem there.
It really is. And I hope that they continue to really exploit that angle, because that's going to be the only way with that time compression they've talked about to really get to that mortality versus immortality.
Yes.
I use the term immortality lightly. Dear listeners who've never read the lore, please forgive me if I ever say serial longevity, because that's really what it is. They exist so long as Arda exists. So they are not immortal, but they are serially longeval. They will live until the end of the earth itself. Obviously, humans have a typical lifespan. Númenorians, we'll see in the next episode. Hopefully we'll learn that they have a longer lifespan than most humans, but obviously nowhere near that of elves. So, and I think we also touched a little bit on that with something that was kind of made up, but kind of also fit, which was that moment with Arondir when he talked about healers and how they call them artificers because the wounds in our bodies sort of heal of their own accord. I thought that was interesting. Sort of a way to talk about their hardiness in battle, their ability to survive wounds. They're typically going to survive the kind of wounds and illness. Oh, they don't even get ill, but they're going to survive things that humans wouldn't survive. I thought that was interesting.
When the humans are living in very primitive circumstances, in huts, and there's a lot of dirt, and they are, agrarian, all that kind of thing, and there will be disease, and there will be starvation, and there will be difficulties. Then you look at the elves, and it doesn't matter what happens; they're still pretty. And they're going to live for, pretty much ever. And they don't look dirty, although one of them may smell of leaf mold, apparently.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But, it's no wonder they hate them. And they do hate them, don't they? They really do despise them because they see in the elves something so above.
Exactly. And the elves are incredibly condescending. With the exception of Arondir. But, even the way his patrol mate, who seems pretty casual, speaks of them in a way that's not exactly positive, but his commander certainly looks down on these people. But let's go ahead and touch then on the romantic tension with Bronwyn. I love her character. I absolutely think that's fantastic.
Very much.
I loved the little lore reference that his patrol mate explained to him and said, this has only happened twice before, and both times it's really been bad. You shouldn't even do this.
I felt that was just such a wonderful way of cutting it off at the pass.
Yes.
Because I remember so many people were like, this is ridiculous. If the showrunners knew the lore, they'd know this had only ever happened twice before, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? They know that.
They do know that.
That's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just the way they just made it so front and center. Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
That's what makes this so, that adds to the tension of this, right?
It does. It does very much. And it does make me wonder what's going to happen with Arondir and Bronwyn. I have many theories, many theories. Perhaps I'll trot them out over the next few weeks.
I'm really hoping they go with sort of the Aignor and Andreth story, that it's sort of this unfulfilled, unconsummated love.
Yes.
That they don't try to do the Baron Luthien thing. They don't try to do the Aragorn Arwen thing in the Third Age.
I agree.
And yet it's all there. I love that phrase. It was very poignant when he says, I've told you in every way but words.
Yes. Oh, that was kind of beautiful.
That really was.
And a typical man.
And I don't need to use words. Words. What are words?
What are words? Here, chocolate, flowers. We're all good.
I've told you. I've already told you. I show you all the time. I work hard. I bring home the money. No.
Oh, dear.
I'm kidding.
1950s husband.
Bad stereotypes. Yeah. So, she gives him this little bottle of alpharin seeds, which he is taken aback by, says, I haven't seen these since I was a child. It clearly is a meaningful gift to him. But alpharin is something else, isn't it, in the Legendarium? James?
Yes, we know it as Silmarillion.
Yes.
The flowers that grows on the burial mounds of the Rohirrim. It's found on the tombs of later on in the tombs of the Númenorians as well.
Yep.
It's a very significant flower.
It is.
Very much related to graves and tombs, though, which I think is interesting, at least for men.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know its significance for elves. That's a very good point.
Symbolizes memory.
But it's interesting that it's a flower that we all are familiar with, even if we don't all know it by its Sindarin name of alpharin.
Yes.
So, yeah, I thought it was neat that they didn't, show Arondir and Bronwyn, in bed. Everybody was afraid when they hired an intimacy coach that we were going to be seeing, nude sex scenes and things like that. The showrunners have shot that idea right out of the sky by saying they want this to be a show that's watchable by kids. I think they said, 12, 13 years old is kind of what they're targeting. They want it to be family, friendly enough for that age.
If you can read the books, you can watch the show, I think is the...
So my son, who's 11, can, but he might have a few moments. I think when the orc, I think he's going to be a little afraid of that.
Yeah, there's some fantasy peril, but kids are pretty good with fantasy peril, I think.
My kid just watched a Jurassic Park or Jurassic World movie, and he's like, "Oh, look at that! The teeth went right through his neck." And okay, if you can handle that, you can handle the orcs.
Yeah, if they can watch Jurassic Park, they can certainly manage the orcs. No problem. Yeah.
So we see the very sick cow. We talked about the 10W30 coming out of there. That was a moment I didn't need to see.
That was pretty gross.
I also thought it was interesting that Arondir gets it all in his hand and then says, I'm going to Hordern, and he walks away without even wiping his hand on anything.
You never see him wipe it off.
That's because he's an elf and it magically disappears because he's just beautiful.
That's right. Most wounds to our beauty just heal of their own accord.
Exactly, including black sludge.
Oh my goodness.
We need to talk about Theo, though.
Yeah. I wanted to chat on that because, of course, as we see the sick cow, Theo and his friend go to the barn. Do we know whose barn that is? Because it's not abandoned, right? I mean, he's talking about, this guy has the king's ransom.
Yeah, he's talking about the old man, and I think he's referring to, is it Bronwyn's father who is the innkeeper?
Oh, is it? I don't know.
Or... I'm not sure.
I didn't pick up on that.
No, but maybe that's the inn.
But it seems to, he seems to be the old guy whose barn it is, maybe. That's kind of what I thought, but he's got some stuff under the board.
Boy, he sure does.
For sure.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
And it's not mice.
No.
I was going to say a mouse problem that we'll come back to later.
Those are very large mice. These second age mice are huge, man.
Oh boy, yeah. And a country boy that mistakes those for mice.
Oh my.
So I think Theo is really being set up for this tension between the past and what happened with his ancestors and all the problems that are going on in his community in terms of the oppression and everything that they've experienced. It's going to be, I think, the way in which they convey a lot of that decision-making about whether to follow Sauron or not is going to be through his eyes, is my guess.
Yeah. And there's something going on here as well that I think ties in. I mean, I've got theories. I have so many theories that ties in with other things here. I mean, Theo's father has disappeared.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't know where he's gone, but he's gone.
Yeah. We don't even know when he left. We don't know whether Theo was a baby or whether it was 2 years ago. Right.
Right. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there not a mysterious guy from the south on a raft right now?
Yes, there is.
Who says he can't go back because terrible things have happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there, right?
I think you're right.
He also says that there's no point going back home because it's all ash now.
Oh, that's right.
Uh-huh. Now, does he mean that literally? Or does he mean that figuratively?
Yeah.
Well, I wondered if, I mean, we're jumping ahead here, but I wondered if he's from Horden.
But would he have been able to get all the way out there on the ship that got wrecked?
I don't know.
That quickly? Maybe he's from another town that this has happened to. That's also possible. But
we know Bronwyn's from Horden originally.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. When did she move to the other town?
I won't be shocked at all to find out.
I don't know if he's going to turn out to be Theo's father, but it wouldn't surprise me if he is.
It would be interesting to then have a father-son pair of ringwraiths.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm loving the fact that I'm not the only one on Twitter that's very suspicious of Halbrand's motives.
Yeah.
Yes.
I hear you on that. I think he's another one of these guys who we're going to, and I know we're skipping ahead a little bit on this, but who are going to be tricked, and we're going to see several, detours, false leads, very much like the stranger, in the sense that we're not going to know much.
Yeah.
So they discover the sword, of course, and then we cut back to Arondir and Bronwyn heading out to Hordern, which that's when we find out that this is a town that was very loyal to Morgoth. And when they get there, it is in burning ruins. Like you said, James, it is in ashes. Whether that's,
well, Halbrand said that.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you quoted Halbrand, I wonder if it's metaphorical or not. We don't know yet. But
we don't know.
But interestingly, there are no bodies. And that's when they find the evidence of those tunnels. Okay.
Yes.
Now it's scary.
Yes. And of course, Arondir just jumps down one.
And remembering again, this is the region that will become Mordor.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, this is...
It's almost like it's starting to transform already.
This is Befordor, you're right. And I think you can tell that also in that view that we get from the Elven Watchtower that's soon to be abandoned. You can see a very large mountain off in the distance. That's got to be Mount Doom itself that we're seeing way off on the horizon. I think also there was that hint about this once being a blasted wasteland that the Elven commander talked about.
Yep.
So it really reminded me in the Silmarillion, in chapter 18 of the Ruin of Beleriand and the Fall of Fingolfin, there's some description in the Ruin of Beleriand about the earth turning black and everything turning to ashes and all that kind of thing.
You're right.
And it just reminded me a little bit of that there's something poisoning the earth from within.
Yeah.
I just thought that was a nice little connection.
You're right. It's another one of those things that's not really a direct mapping, but it's certainly a callback and a way to reference things that, again, show the knowledge of the lore and show a desire to show things that maybe they don't have the right to show, which the showrunners very explicitly told us in London that they, they may not be able to say these things, but they can certainly imply them, and they're going to.
Yes. Like we said, Easter eggs. There are Easter eggs everywhere.
Absolutely. Lots of them. So the evidence of the tunnels. Bronwyn, of course, is told to head back. Boy, that's a poignant moment because it may be a long time, if ever, that they see each other again. So we're going to go ahead after that, right? Bronwyn's told to run back, warn your town. We know that Arondir is going to dive into the tunnels. We don't see that yet. Instead, we cut back to Theo, who's really ticked off at these mice.
Yeah. Noise in the floorboards, really determined to get rid of them.
He kind of loses his temper a little bit.
Those are sizable mice.
Yeah.
He does. He's got anger issues.
Well, he's what, 13, 14 years old. So
we saw that before when his dad was mentioned as well. Like he got really defensive there. But yeah, he breaks, he smashes the floorboards and there's some eyes there.
That gave me a little
pretty
bit of a
big
fright.
mouse.
That was a terrifying moment.
That was a jump moment.
It sure was.
Definitely.
Yeah. And of course, that's when we get back to Arondir and he's hunting down the source, who's been digging these tunnels. Can I just say that my claustrophobia kicked in a little bit when he was crawling through that portion of the cave? I have to skip that scene. Yeah. I've watched the show now 2 more times. I literally just skipped that because I know what happens. I don't have to experience that again.
But cutting between that and what's going on in Bronwyn's house, I think was really clever because it really built the tension.
Oh, it sure did.
Because especially when Arondir starts, he hears something behind him, and so he's moving faster. And at the same time, stuff is happening at Bronwyn's house.
Stuff certainly is happening, right? We come back to after Arondir's capture by the orcs, and I can't wait to see the continuation of that storyline. We jump back to Bronwyn, and she gets home.
And there's an orc in my kitchen, what am I gonna do? There's an orc in my kitchen, what am I gonna do?
Oh, that is good stuff right there. Oh. Theo tells her to leave. I'm kind of thinking, why doesn't she just grab Theo and the two of them run? They did have enough time, but I understand. It's, cinematic tension. We're trying to build that. By the way, why aren't we talking about Korra the original here? Because these are entirely made up characters in an entirely made up place. So this is all part of the canons of narrative art. When you don't have a narrative to follow, you do have to come up with one. But it does still, I think, stick with the themes. We see, a little bit of hope and despair. We see a little bit of fellowship. We see the determination, sort of the circle of light, the Beowulf theme, fighting this defeat. So in this battle, right, we've got the battle with the orc here. Let's talk a little bit about the tension that's built and the changes that we've seen in the orcs cinematically.
Yeah, visually, they're pretty different so far. Pretty different to Peter Jackson's orcs. That's interesting.
It is. I wonder if they're supposed to be predecessors or if it's just a totally different spin on them.
Yeah,
it definitely feels like an earlier stage. It's almost like sort of comparing Bronze Age to Iron Age kind of thing, right? Different weapons, different materials used. I mean, the orcs themselves look different as well. They, I would say, tend to be leaner, maybe.
Yeah, they were more human-sized. By the time we get to the Third Age, they're definitely shorter because we're told that the captain in Moria is almost man-high, and that he was significantly larger than the others.
Yeah, we can't compare them to the Uruk-hai because that's completely different anyway.
Yeah, you're right. That's definitely an entirely different breed, if you will. But yeah, these are, well, I'll tell you one thing. They've made orcs scary again.
Yes.
Absolutely terrifying.
They're not the comic, they're not the Cockney speaking.
Yeah, meat's back on the menu, boys. This is not that.
Yeah,
and they're incredibly difficult to kill.
Yeah, I was going to name this orc Rasputin because he took quite a few.
I mean, my
Rasputin
goodness.
the orc.
He takes that humongous farm implement right through the midsection and goes on as if nothing has happened. He tries to, Theo essentially hangs him. He gets out of that.
Still,
it was tough.
Exactly.
Jackson's orcs were typically cannon fodder, but it did make me think a little bit of Lurtz, who, even after Aragorn gets him, he's like, fine, I'm just going to pull that sword right through me,
Yeah.
Very tough to kill. Very tough to kill.
That doesn't bode well, does it?
No, it does not. I was thinking that exact same thing. Battles against these guys are going to be tough.
Quoting Sadok. That was Sadok's line.
It was.
This does not bode well.
That does not bode well.
It does not.
No.
We need to get an audio clip of this does not bode well.
We should make that a sound clip. You're right. It does not bode well.
Yes, along with that, it sounds like a tomorrow problem.
That's a tomorrow problem.
Oh my goodness, that does sound like a tomorrow problem. In fact, the idea of getting the sound clips, that just sounds like a tomorrow problem. I mean, that's going to be my job, but that's a tomorrow problem. I love the way it ends. We don't see her killing him. We don't see the killing blow. We cut immediately to her placing the orc's head on the table at the pub. Here, anybody who wants to live.
Speaking of badass women, right?
She kicks butt, man. I love her. Absolutely.
Yeah, she's more or less strutting into that pub saying, come with me if you want to live.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. She just was, fantastic.
She's epic.
Get to the chopper.
Don't mess with mom.
No, do not. Absolutely do not. But speaking of mom, her son goes back to the sword. Okay.
Yes, of course he does.
And this is when we get that dramatic moment that we've seen in the trailers with a little bit of an addition, right? In the trailers, we saw the sword recreating itself out of that black mist, very much like the reverse of the Morgul blade in the Jackson adaptations. But here we see what leads up to that, and it is the blood from his wounds.
His blood
that powers.
So the question is it something about him?
Yes.
And his lineage?
Yes.
Or is it just any human blood?
Yeah.
The suggestion, though, is that there's something about him and his ancestry that is able to trigger.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Is it coded to his DNA as opposed to just generic human blood? Oh, that is a fascinating thought.
It remains to be seen, but I mean, they're setting it up for it to be a possibility that, because there's also, let me bring up another thing that we haven't touched on, which is where his friend says about a true king return.
Right.
What's that about?
Oh boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is he referring to Morgoth or some human king that was served under Morgoth?
That actually,
we don't know enough
certainly
yet.
fed into the Watch Commander's concerns that these people are still not trustworthy.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's talking about Morgoth, I've got news for you. He's not coming back from the gates of night. If it's Sauron, then, maybe. If it's a human king, wow.
But it just shows you, though, doesn't it, that when you're living in oppression, which these people essentially are, and somebody comes along and says, I will liberate you, all you have to do is sign up to be on my side.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see why it happens.
Even if that side happens to be evil. Yeah.
Yeah, but who's making the judgment as to whether that's evil?
Exactly, because if you're the one under the foot of the elves, in this case, I mean, that's what he says. Literally, they're going to pry us out from under your pointy boots.
Yes.
Yeah. From their perspective, anybody that's going to free them is good, even if it does happen to be Sauron. Boy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get, of course, that this town becomes suddenly migratory. They go full Harfoot and pack up their bags and go. I love the music there.
They play the Sauron music.
They do. They play that evil theme.
Yes. Oh, I love the way they're using the music. It's really great.
That's the thing, folks. I got to tell you, that is one of the highlights of this show for me so far has been the music. If you have any music app like Spotify, you can at least listen to the soundtrack for the first season. That's available everywhere. But if you do have Amazon Music, you can actually listen to each individual episode's soundtrack. And both the first and second episodes have been released, and they are fantastic.
Which made me realize only a couple of days ago, Bear McCreary is one of the few people that's seen the
entirety of the first season. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the actors haven't.
No, they have not.
But Bear McCreary has.
Yeah.
And we know that in Hall H that Stephen Colbert was given that opportunity and turned them down. I thought that was interesting. They were going to give him a chance to watch the entirety of the first season.
I didn't know that.
He says that.
I did not know that. Yeah.
Is that right?
During the kind of introduction to the panel before he called anybody out. This was right after he'd given a hat tip to Corey Olsen, the Tolkien professor, but didn't give a hat tip to Alan Sisto and Sean Marchese, the Man of the West and Lord of the Mark. But that's okay.
Well done.
That's okay. Not yet. Not yet.
I know he won't actually, because what did you hear his one gripe about Corey? He goes too fast.
No?
He goes too fast because Corey goes too fast. So I thought, what in the world are you talking about? I mean,
you're kidding me.
Was he being sarcastic?
I think he might have been a little tongue in cheek. No, he wanted to go even deeper on certain things. And I thought, okay, well, if Colbert thinks that Corey goes too quickly, and for those of you who don't know the Exploring the Lord of the Rings show that Corey does, I believe it's projected to complete somewhere in 2057, and they're currently on their way to Moria.
Yeah, you're talking about finishing The Fellowship, right, in 2057.
No, I actually think that is the completion of The Lord of the Rings. But yeah.
Yeah, it is. The problem is it's slowing down.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's the rate of slowdown. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about literally a 40 or 50 year discussion of the books, which is fantastic if I plan to live to be 90 something years old. But being already in my mid 50s, I'm going to take the 10-year route that we're doing. On the PPP.
Same.
So. Anyway, I totally digress.
Totally.
Corey, of course, is going to be co-hosting with me the first 4 episodes of this season of the Prancing Pony podcast. We can't wait to have him on. But yeah, Stephen Colbert was given a chance to view the entirety of the first season. He passed on that. I know I was not given that. Neither were you, James, right? None of us in London were.
Not that I can say.
No. Not that.
I can see why he turned that down.
If I'd seen the first episode, first season, I wouldn't be able to tell you.
No, that's exactly. You'd be under some massive NDA. Yeah. I also know you weren't.
Let's see how many of my predictions. Let's see how many of my predictions turn out to be scarily accurate.
Who's the meteor man?
A Balrog.
Okay. All right. We'll see. I'm going to think you're telling me. I think you got an NDA you need to tell me about. But all right. Well, we're going to go ahead and move on. I don't know how we're going to cover 2 storylines in the next 15 minutes. It's probably not going to happen, but we're going to go a little long today. We're going to start with Galadriel's journey to and from Valinor. We are going to speed through this, even though it should be absorbed beautifully. We're going to have to kind of move quickly, right? We get this ceremonial removal of the weapons and armor, clearly a reminder that as you're going to the Undying Lands, you are not going to need these anymore. For those of you who know the First Age, you know that they didn't have weapons or armor at first, that Morgoth was the one who taught them in secret how to forge these things. And the first time we ever see a weapon, it is Feanor pulling it on his half-brother and threatening to kill him right there in the middle of Valinor.
Feanor, no.
Exactly. The entirety of the Silmarillion, Feanor no.
Mhm.
The removal of those things, clearly kind of a warm-up.
Symbolic gesture.
Yeah, very symbolic.
Yeah, it felt baptismal almost.
Yes, very much so.
Very, absolutely. Those birds were beautiful. The long-tailed birds coming, and I'm so glad they didn't use seagulls. They're kind of obnoxious birds.
They are.
I mean, I love them, but and Legolas is like, the gulls, they make me want to go to the sea. Seagulls
Really?
make me want to go back inland, man. They're obnoxious. But these birds were beautiful. And then, can we just touch about the music real quick? Stunning choral work.
Yes, and of course, this is what Elrond is talking about. He's just heard that there's these songs.
That we all know this song internally, that we all carry the memory of this song. And we do see that exactly played out as the elves begin to sing along with that music, all in this just glorious, rich tapestry of sound. They nailed the cinematography on this, the lighting, the overall feel of this scene, the clouds parting. But the scene doesn't stop with just that, does it? That's when the meteor starts to fly over these other areas, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we get that juxtaposition between the meteor and the opening up. The implication being that it's escaped, that it's been sent, as whatever. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
The express train from Valinor, it's...
Manwë's yeeted it out.
Manwë's yeeted it out. I love it. Yeeted the meteor. Yeet Airlines. The baggage requirements on the airline, by the way, are pretty brutal. Not only can you not bring a check bag or a carry-on bag, you can't even bring clothes.
Exactly. But don't worry. But don't worry. It's quite cool.
That's right. There are no in-flight snacks or drinks, but that's okay. You'll be unconscious. This is
shades of Terminator landing completely naked.
Yes, very much so. I was thinking Ryanair, but
we'll go with Terminator. I think you'd be begging for a meteor with a fiery landing instead of Ryanair. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't mean that about Ryanair. Please don't.
Of course not. Nor do I mean that about Spirit Airlines or Alliance here in the States, but only slightly. The meteor flyover continues over all these various lands. And of course, we get one of my favorite scenes, literally just a single shot, I should say, is the moment with the Ents.
Yes.
We see 2 full-size Ents and a baby Ent. Such a neat little moment. So while we've already touched on the meteor itself, I wanted to talk about that symbolism of it flying over at the same time. James, you touched on that. Was there anything more about its departure from Valinor and its arrival in Middle-earth that you wanted to talk about as being related to this opening, if you will?
It'll be interesting if they are related, or whether it was just sort of for the narrative effect of juxtaposing them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's going to ultimately tie to who it ends up being.
Yeah,
the stranger.
Right.
I think
that's a very good point,
because once we know who the stranger is, we'll know who sent them and why. But yeah,
okay. So we'll go back to the ship then, and we start to see this effect, if you will. And talk to me, is this metaphorical or is this literal? But it does appear that the elves that are at the front of the boat, they're sort of being melted. They're sort of being disintegrated.
I think it's just the warmth of the light.
I got very much a beam me up Scotty feeling.
I know, but I think it's just that warmth of the light, which again Elrond mentions, and then Galadriel's like, you know what? It's like that every day.
I was there, man. That's all I ever knew. Right.
I mean, the thing is, at this point, Valinor should not be hidden from the world in that way. Not yet.
Yeah, it was slightly strange to me.
I thought the same thing. I couldn't remember when they started putting up the clouds. I knew that obviously it's still part of the globe at this point, the globe, part of the flat Earth. Yeah, it's not the straight road at this point.
The clouds parting is I presume a reference to Gandalf's description of what happens when you die.
The clouds part and the silver glass, and
that's the only reference I can think of that could be alluding to.
Far green country under a swift sunrise. But it does seem to be almost a barrier in between
which is
the world of Middle-earth and Valinor, because it does seem that it's almost like a gateway.
The Valar, didn't they put up sort of this enchanting mist, so to speak, to prevent.
Well, there's the Enchanted Isles, but at the same time, Númenor, from the highest point of Númenor, you can see the highest point of Eretria. So
that's true.
I don't know how that would work if there's clouds in the way.
They're really low clouds. It's just like a marine layer.
Those clouds do come later again.
That's what I thought.
Alert.
Yeah, I thought they were later.
The clouds do come later as part of the downfall of Númenor, but even before Númenor sinks, they comment that they can no longer see.
Right. That's true. Spoilers.
Anyway, the clouds bothered me a little bit.
Just a touch. To me, I guess I had to take the idea that the disintegration was just metaphorical, that they're not literally becoming spirit beings at this point. They still have their physical bodies in Valinor. We know that.
Right.
And so this isn't death. This isn't a ship committing mass suicide to get to heaven. And yet that was sort of the feel that I had.
It did seem very cult. It did seem a little cult-like, right? You put on robes and then all dematerialize.
And you all sing, and then you just, become
It's
other.
just missing the Kool-Aid, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Deep stuff. I also thought it was interesting that Gigwit offers Galadriel his hand, as though Galadriel's going to take your hand, pal.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember when you committed mutiny?
I wouldn't hold your hand if you were the last elf on it. Oh, wait.
Seriously. But we finally get the playback of Finrod's line, the one that's whispered in the prologue. Sometimes we cannot know until we have touched the darkness.
Yeah.
That's going to be some rich thematic material that's going to come back over and over and over.
Yeah.
And we get the shot that I was alluding to before.
Yes.
And this is so hard to pull off. I normally hate it in films when an actor looks directly at the camera, breaking the fourth wall.
Yep.
But somehow Morveth Clark just pulled it off in such a way that I honestly, when I first saw it in New York, when I watched it on my television here, every time I've watched it, it's like Galadriel is looking straight at me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saying, should I do this? Yes, I'm going to do. Like, you see the moment she makes the decision. It's just the coming back, Sarah, to what you were saying about the acting with her eyes.
Yes, it's all in her eyes. It's amazing.
Unbelievable. That just, it's probably my favorite single moment.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she conveys so much emotion without having to say anything. And I know, she's an actor, yes, but not all actors can do that.
She's a good one.
She's a really good one.
But as you say, James, actually doing it looking straight down the throat of the camera is really unusual.
Yes. But it worked. It really totally worked.
Yes, it didn't feel cheesy, which it could have.
It brings a tear to my eye just watching it.
When talking about it now,
it makes me choked up a little.
Yeah, especially when you understand what she's giving up. I mean, if this is the narrative here that we accept, that she's being sent home and, essentially to paradise, and she's saying, no, I'm not going to do that because there's a job I have to do. I mean, that's a heck of a sacrifice.
It's huge. Yeah. Especially because she doesn't know if she's going to be able to ever get back. I mean, let's be honest about that. This is an incredibly long way from shore. This is my other big gripe, right? If Gil-galad is my big gripe, number one, my big gripe, number two, just logically forgetting about lore, is the idea that she's going to somehow swim her way back to Middle Earth, which is thousands of miles, thousands.
Yes.
But I don't think she's thinking through that.
She's not.
Right?
She's not.
And that's why it doesn't really, at some level, doesn't really matter. I mean, there's another question of how on earth the other shipwreck was able to find her.
Yeah, how did that ship get this far out? Yeah.
That's more of the mystery there. I think in her mind, she's just like, I can't do this. I've got to go back. She's not thinking through how she's going to do that. No,
she's not. She's clearly very much in the moment.
Crunch time, she's got to make that decision.
But of course, that then suggests that the trip to Valinor is a one-way trip and that she could never come back. And that's also another lore breaker. It's sort of one of these things, like if they hadn't set up Valinor to be this almost literal heaven, where you have to become a being of spirit to get there. Well, if they hadn't set it up that way, then she could just go and come back. But then that totally eliminates that tension.
Right, exactly. And we need that tension. We need to feel that she's sacrificing something. to stay behind.
She's willing to sacrifice it all at this point. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, for those who know The Lord of the Rings, you now know how long she's going to wait before she actually does return to Valinor.
Yeah.
We're talking about thousands of years.
Yeah.
This is not like, I'll go next weekend instead.
The rest of the Second Age and another over 3,000 years before the end of the Third.
Yeah, exactly.
If we do go with sort of the reason for Galadriel saying that she passed the test and can now go west. If you take that into account, you really appreciate the sacrifice.
You sure do.
That she's making, right?
That's a very good point.
Yes, indeed.
Despite the complete illogic of trying to swim all the way back.
Yes.
But you're right. I mean, in the moment, she's not thinking that. She's just saying, I can't be on this boat. I've got to leave. I've got to leave. Yeah. And so for that moment, it works.
Yeah, they've also got to construct a moment so that she can meet up with Halbrand. So,
exactly. Yeah.
So let's talk about Halbrand.
Yeah, let's do that. So she encounters the wreckage of that ship, including Halbrand, along with other people from the Southlands.
Mm-hmm.
The disturbing thing is that the others don't stay around for very long.
No, they don't.
Exactly. And Halbrand does not seem that worried.
He does not.
No, and in fact, he basically suggests that he did what he needed to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's sort of the game of lifeboat.
Yeah. Did he pitch them overboard so that he could keep the raft?
Yeah. Very possible. What do you think the purpose of the sea creature was? I'm not convinced we really needed that, other than to give us reason for Halbrand to protect his own life. Maybe that's the sole reason for it.
Maybe.
Yeah. And some more fantasy peril.
Yeah, this moment needs more fantasy peril. It needs, a danger that's otherworldly. There are, of course, creatures on the map, quite literally, the map of Middle-earth.
I was going to say that was a fun little Easter egg going back to 2019.
Yeah,
that the sea creature's on the map.
Yeah, it's right there, man. They've been telling us for years.
Yeah. I mean, Galadriel. Let's face it. Galadriel took care of a snow troll all by herself. Pretty much. Yeah. Well, the other elves just stood around and went, yay, Galadriel.
Yeah, they were pretty much rolling natural ones right up until the moment she decided to get involved, weren't they?
Yes. And then, somehow she ends up so that Halbrand has to rescue her. Deep sigh.
Well,
that little moment.
The lightning strike. I missed the first time I watched it that she's basically struck by lightning is how she goes over.
She's she's attached herself to the mast. Right. She's roped herself to the mast, which can we comment on the fact that she keeps on pulling the rope earlier on, even though the rope isn't connected to anything or does anything? Yeah. She just has to have something in her hands and something to do. I get it.
Just going to do this.
I'm just going to keep pulling on the rope.
Yeah.
Maybe that explains her making rope later on in Lothlorien. She's just got this rope thing. No comment.
Yes.
But,
I knew I'd need rope that actually did something. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So she does tie herself to the mast, and then either she or the mast, I'm going to presume the mast, since she's still alive and not burned to a crisp, the mast gets struck by lightning, knocked off the boat, and she essentially acts as an anchor with the mast and goes down.
Yes.
Before, of course, Halbrand saves her, wisely spotting the dagger, using that to cut the rope so that she can, surface.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the little chat they had, though, about him calling her a deserter? You don't look like somebody that things happen to by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Well, he's not wrong.
No, he's not wrong. She's very much the center of things, and things don't happen to her by accident.
Yeah.
That was very perceptive of him. But I'm not sold on him yet at all.
No. And this is the problem. I'm really suspicious of his motives. I mean, why? Why were they out in the middle of the Sundering Sea in the first place?
Right.
Why were they there?
Especially considering they're from a very landlocked area.
Right.
I mean, they would have had to travel weeks just to get to the shore of the sea and then build a boat.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or steal a boat.
Yes.
And make their way out.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I wanted to point out is he has around his neck this purse that on inside looks like he could be carrying. It looks similar to Bronwyn's medicine.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And on the outside, he had what's potentially one of the symbols that we saw carved in the village. I don't know whether it's an eagle or some fell beast.
I'm going to hope it's like a some other bird, because eagle and child is just too on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's certainly what it looked like in the carving on the village.
There was. The artistic director said they deliberately, actually, just as a little Easter egg, carved an eagle and a child inside the pub.
It's the bird and baby. Yeah.
It's the bird
But
and
it
baby.
looked similar to that on
It did.
the purse around his neck.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that and thought, well, that's interesting.
Yes.
It's going to be really interesting to see what his story is.
For those who've never dived deep into the biography of Tolkien, and I'm hoping, frankly, that's a lot of you listeners, that you're coming to the show not knowing the books, not knowing the lore, not knowing Tolkien's, personal story. The Eagle and Child is the name of a pub that the Inklings met at. Now, the Inklings were a group of literary giants that included Tolkien and Lewis and several others, Charles Williams, and I'm missing a few others off the top of my head. But
Owen Barfield.
Yeah, they met at this Eagle and Child, which was also known as the Bird and Baby, for drinks and to discuss their books and things like that. A little nod then to reference the Eagle and Child, though having an eagle actually eating a child was a little troubling. So, but yeah, that's what we saw in Halbrand, and we saw it on the stones in a cutscene later when they went back to the town that they were in there in the Southlands. So, so she's saved by Halbrand, and then we see at the end of the episode, of course, the fact that they're waking up to an early morning sun. The sun is backlighting a figure on what's presumably a Númenorian ship, and I can't wait for that storyline to develop, because I've been saying from the get-go that my excitement is saved mostly for Númenor, and I'm hoping we get to see big chunks of that in episode 3.
Oh, yes. I'm looking forward to Númenor. Númenor, an immersive experience.
That's wonderfully played. An immersive experience.
I'm going to hand that one to James, because he made that one up in a conversation we had about a week ago. We were talking about what are we going to put on a T-shirt, and I said we should have one that says, "Ask me about the Second Age." And then James said we should also have Númenor, an immersive experience.
An immersive experience.
The other one, which was entirely accidental, was in one of the classes that I teach on the Second Age with Alicia Del Cedeno. I started off one of the classes on Númenor by saying, today we're going to do a deep dive.
Yes.
That was a complete accident.
I was there. I testify to that being absolutely true. And then everybody laughed.
That was an accident.
But everybody assumed you'd made a really class joke.
Yeah. Númenor, join us for our barbecues, and afterwards we'll go for a swim. All right. Well, that does leave one storyline, and it's actually my favorite storyline of the entire pair of episodes, and we're going to still have to race through it because, folks, we are already running long. We're aiming to try to get these episodes to be about an hour per. Now, of course, this is a double episode, so pay no attention to that. But let's talk about Elrond and Celebrimbor briefly, but mostly Elrond and Moria, the dwarves, Durin and Disa, and that incredible conversation there. So we're going to start with Elrond and Celebrimbor. Feanor's hammer is how we're introduced to that conversation, isn't it?
Yes. Well, first of all, there's the Linden introduction of the two of them, and they obviously travel to Eregion. They're looking at Feanor's hammer.
Yeah.
Raises interesting questions. How on earth did Feanor's hammer get there?
Yes.
That's a very good point.
That's a very clever trick.
One of his kids, presumably, let's see, which one was Celebrimbor's dad? That wasn't Curufin, that was...
It depends. There's multiple versions.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There are multiple versions of that.
Yes.
But yeah. So for those of you who don't know, Celebrimbor is actually the grandson of Feanor. And it's of course entirely possible that Celebrimbor would have Feanor's hammer.
Yes. It's an heirloom of the family.
Right. They did not forget to take that off the boats before they burned them,
Yeah.
So the reference to the Silmarils was interesting.
This is the point in which we find out about the Silmarils, not earlier.
Yeah. The Silmarils are first mentioned here.
I'm not sure about the story of Morgoth.
Yeah, Elrond's bit in that piece is fine, right? He's talking about how, amazing that this hammer was responsible for creating so much beauty and also so much pain and death and destruction. He only uses one word, but yes, all of those. But yeah, Celebrimbor's idea that the Silmarils nearly turned Morgoth. What do you make of this? James, why don't you start with that?
Well, it's not quite as bad as Gil-galad having authority to grant access to Valinor, but it's up
close.
there.
Yeah,
it doesn't bother me. So this is one distinction I think is helpful to make. There are things that I think are completely wrong, but they don't particularly bother me.
Right.
There are some things where, maybe I'm on the fence about whether it fits the law or not. So to me, this is something that just feels completely wrong. But, it's a throwaway line. It doesn't affect anything with the main story at all.
That's fair. And I've got an idea that
it may not even be true, right? Celebrimbor may just be deluded
This is a some say moment, right? He literally says,
some say.
Some say.
But I'd like to know who those some are, because who would be standing there watching Morgoth staring into the Silmaril, who then would come out and say, hey, you'll never believe what the boss has been up to. Pass it on.
The whispers amongst the Balrogs.
Right. Yes,
the boss was crying.
Yes. Gothmog is horrified.
Gothmog's rolling his eyes. I can't believe the boss is still crying about these stones, man.
Yes, for goodness sake.
I also think not only is this a some say moment, I think what we're hearing here, you've heard the phrase headcanon before.
Yeah.
I think this is Celebrimbor's own headcanon.
Exactly.
It is what he believes, and nobody else in the world possibly believes this. But Celebrimbor is clearly so enamored of subcreation, of art, of beauty, of crafting and things like this, as we'll see with the rings, that he would believe this.
I was going to say, if anyone would be deluded into believing that story, it's him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it actually sets him up really well for the idea that he will eventually succumb to the temptation presented by Annatar. Sauron in his disguise is the one who
he's already saying he wants to make something of real power.
So I was going to ask about that, right? So he basically, we find out that the reason that Elrond has been sent there is because Celebrimbor has these plans to build this giant furnace.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs it done by spring.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
It's not like the elves don't have time. Elves have lots of time. So why does it have to be done by spring again? Yeah.
I know. I didn't understand the rush.
It's very strange. So I'm hoping it'll be explained. Yeah. I mean,
it would be odd if it was not.
Maybe it's what he hasn't said is, because my new buddy Annatar, he's in a bit of a rush and I'm really looking forward to working with him. So I need this forge really quickly.
I have this opportunity to study with this really...
Yes. But it's a narrow window of opportunity.
Amazing guy, but he's only available in... Yeah, exactly. His calendar's only free.
You're right. That could actually be the very solid explanation for the timeline. But yeah, the idea is that they can, with this forge that would be able to make a fire hotter than anything they've ever had, purer than anything they've ever used. With that, they could then craft items of power.
What I love about that is this idea that there are levels of powerful rings or otherwise
artifacts of some kind, right?
Artifacts of some kind that depend on the heat.
Yes,
because it nicely sets us up for why the One Ring had to be
in Mount Doom.
Yeah. That's the only place that's even hotter than Celebrimbor's. Like it's this furnace is going to enable the rings of the 19 rings of power,
right? But only Mount Doom would enable the one.
But only Mount Doom can do even better.
Because my fire is hotter than your fire.
Oh my goodness, we're just going to have a battle of the fires here.
Yeah,
that scene was relatively short, but I have to say, for those who've been criticizing Celebrimbor's casting, I actually really enjoyed the portrayal.
Fantastic.
I think he nailed the character beautifully.
Oh yeah, I like him.
The sort of, you could see the obsession with beauty and power, and you could totally envision him getting suckered in.
Oh yeah.
By Annatar. I thought he did a fantastic job. I know some people have been like, oh, he's too old for this part. I thought he did great. So
I agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, technically he is, because Galadriel looks so much
relative
younger than him.
to
Galadriel looks like she's 19, man.
Yes. And Celebrimbor looks more like 49.
Yeah.
The actor himself is doing a cracking job. So yeah,
fantastic. Yes,
absolutely. All right, well, let's get to the scene we're all talking about here. I don't know about you guys, but my whole favorite storyline in this was the Moria storyline.
Yeah.
So let's get there, right? Elrond, the door scene, right? He's told he can't come in. He invokes the right of Sigyn Tarag.
Well, before that, though, before he invokes the right of Sigyn Tarag,
Kobayashi Maru.
The next, the thing he does before that, though, is emphasize the friendship.
Yes, he does.
And I'm really hoping, I mean, some people have said it was a bit on the nose, but I loved it because he's going, but tell Durin his friend Elrond's here.
Right.
I'm his friend.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping they use that as a way of saying, what are we going to pick as a password?
Right. Well, friend. Yes, I hope so. I really do.
Narvi erasure.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
They
what
might
happens.
introduce a Narvi, right? Somebody working with Celebrimbor.
They might. Yeah, I mean, I did enjoy the fact that Celebrimbor and Elrond seem to be able to teleport long distances and still look absolutely swish.
They did look absolutely swish, yes.
That brings up a point that I was just going to say. One slight disappointment I have that Ostenethil is already established.
Yeah, that's true. Ostenethil had not been established at this point, not yet.
The sole reason for the settlement of Eregion, at least in the Lord of the Rings version of the story, is that Mithril had been found.
Right? Yeah.
That they're changing that order, which, again, I think it's wrong law-wise, but it doesn't bother me.
And that one also really does fit into the whole idea of the canons of narrative art. You need to start with that relationship already in place.
Yes.
You don't have the time to develop that from nothing halfway through the series. Yeah.
Exactly.
So they do get in by, he does get in by invoking the Sigyn Tarag, which means what? Just Longbeards, right?
It's Kuzdal for Longbeards, yes, which is the one of the, there are 7 families of dwarves, and the Longbeards are one of them. The Durins are all of the Longbeard.
Yeah, well, the Longbeards are the only family of dwarves that we ever see in the second or third age.
Yes.
We do know in the first age of 2 other houses of the dwarves, being in Belagost and
Nogrod,
yeah. Mm-hmm. In Belagost and Nogrod. The others are all listed as being from the east, and we know nothing of them, and we never meet them in the Legendarium. So really the Longbeards are the dwarves for all intents and purposes as far as the Legendarium is concerned. So Elrond does get in. Talk about these dwarves in their ceremonial masks. These were the coolest things.
Oh, the masks. Just getting to see.
Moria
in its prime, right? Yeah. And you can see why Gimli was so keen for the rest of the Fellowship to see if it had looked like that.
Absolutely.
But we're seeing the parallels here with Jackson did with Khazad-dûm straight away. First of all, people arrive at the door expecting there to be beer and meat and a great welcome, and it doesn't happen on either occasion.
Well, you get the direct salted pork reference as well.
Right, exactly. And malt beer.
In malt beer, yes.
Ripe meat off the bone.
Yeah.
Yes. Yuck, by the way. Vegetarian here.
I apologize in advance. There will be steak references.
Ew. So what we also get when they get into Khazad-dûm is we see the bridge. The bridge. Yes. It's the bridge.
It's
right?
the bridge.
It's the bridge. Yeah. I loved that moment. But I love everything about what they're doing with Khazad-dûm at the moment.
They nailed Khazad-dûm. They really, really did.
Awesome. I love it.
And I should be calling it Khazad-dûm. I called it Moria because that's in the third age. That's what we reference it as. But of course, Moria just means dark pit, and I don't think that's a name that's appropriate at this point in the story. So we'll keep calling it Khazad-dûm.
It's interesting when Amazon was doing the maps in 2019. One of the things that a lot of us were talking about was why have they chosen to A, show the places on the map that they are showing, and B, naming them the way they are. Yeah. Because some of the names were unusual choices.
Yeah.
And what was interesting about that was in the early versions of the map, remember there were 6 maps that got released. First, no labels at all, and then they incrementally added more and more labels. And it was starting to become increasingly clear that this was, an interesting group of places, because they were never mentioning Gondor, they were never mentioning the Shire or anything like that. They were calling it Moria until the very last map reveal.
Yes.
When they finally said, this is the second age, and Númenor was included. And on that map, they called it Khazad-dûm.
I think if they had called it Khazad-dûm earlier on, it might have given a hint. But yeah.
Yep.
Well, the arrival, I have to say, those ceremonial masks completely made me think of that moment in the first age when Azaghal successfully wounds Glaurung. Glaurung flees the field of battle. Azaghal dies, and the dwarves we're out. And they just march out, and nobody has the guts to stop them. Right. Peace out, man. But they're described as having these masks, wearing these masks that enable them to withstand the fire of dragons. And that is what these ceremonial masks
what they look like.
are.
Yeah.
They are
That's what
awesome. Yeah. Really cool stuff. The music might have been my absolute favorite theme aside from the evil theme.
Yep.
Really, really good stuff. Okay. Let's talk about the flowing testosterone in the rock-splitting battle.
Oh, my goodness.
Just a little bit. I mean, it's not a storyline that really particularly matters. It's just a way of humbling Elrond, of showing us Durin's sort of grudge. But it was fun.
Yeah, it's also establishing, again, the problem of time.
Yes.
And I do think it's, because it comes up more than once, I think it's actually something that's quite important, is that
it is.
the idea of the problem of time.
Mm-hmm.
It does set up a little bit of tension between Durin and Elrond, which is great for the story. You get this humorous moment, of course, where there's just two guys breaking rocks, because that's what they do.
That's what guys do. We're just breaking rocks.
Exactly. And thus giving them the opportunity to have that long conversation in the elevator afterwards.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good strategic move by Elrond.
Yeah.
You know, perhaps the prince would care to escort me to the exit. You know, the moment on the elevator that I really enjoyed was, have I offended you? We'll need a longer lift for that.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Durin's lines during that whole trip.
Yes.
On the elevator was just,
Oh, yes.
And very dwarven, right? Quick to hold a grudge. They the thing
exactly
that we hear about the dwarves, even in their very beginning, is just how they're fast in friendship, but they're also fast in enmity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they definitely can carry a grudge more than anybody else, even the elves.
You can hear the hurt in his voice, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, he's genuinely hurt.
I thought that was wonderful because, the showrunners had promised that we're not just going to get comic relief dwarves.
Good.
Yeah.
We're going to get much more richness. And it started right with that conversation.
Yes, it did. Which came before the moment that could have been seen as comic relief, the belch, which in context isn't comic relief. It's more like him just showing his disdain for Elrond.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to assert his dominance in the situation.
Right.
Jesus gives him the glare for that, but we'll get to that.
Yes, he's going to be sleeping on the sofa tonight.
Yeah,
That's for
on
sure.
the rock sofa. That elevator ride, you're right. Yeah, I was really surprised. I guess I expected them to address the mortality, passage of time issue with maybe the
man
Arondir and Bronwyn relationship.
Yeah.
Or maybe with a Númenorian and Halbrand and Galadriel with Southerner, or with somebody in Númenor and Galadriel.
Mm-hmm.
But instead they introduce it with these two.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that, and I thought it was perfect.
I was too. I loved it. And it was unexpected, but I'd made a tweet when we weren't allowed to tweet spoilers. I said that there were at least two things where I felt the showrunners had kind of cut off objectors at the pass. One of them that I already mentioned is there's been two times that an elf and a human union has been attempted. And the other was this dealing with the longevity difference.
Yes.
But the fact that they did it with an elf and a dwarf, it was unexpected, but it worked really well.
And it also reminded us, I think, it'll help other people to remember that the dwarves are very much mortal.
Yes.
That they are not, they have longer lives than men, but it's important to remember that the dwarves are not like elves in that context.
Right.
I think we already know that about men, so this was a kind of a good little bonus.
Exactly, yes. You get it's a twofer, right? You learn the difference between elves and dwarves, but you also learn more about dwarven longevity that you might not have known. Yep.
Yeah. Let's talk about my queen, Disa.
Disa.
The scene stealer.
Oh, she's amazing.
She is. I can finally say that this was one of the three scenes that we saw in London, right? We were not allowed to say what footage we saw, but we were given three entire scenes. One of them was the battle against the snow troll that began with the climbing of the ice wall and ended right after the death of the troll. Did not get us to the mutiny.
We did not get the mutiny.
No, we did not.
That was kept under.
Otherwise, you never would have come up with Gigwit.
I would not have called him Gigwit.
No, Galadriel is great. Who the heck do you think you are? It doesn't quite roll off the tongue. Then we got this scene, and it was with the arrival of Elrond into their home all the way through the end of that meal.
Yeah, the dinner scene. Yeah.
That was the one that gave me the most hope, because it gave me a sense of incredible character, all three of them being incredible characters, and also the dialogue, the setting, the costuming, the sets, the music, all of it, because it was all complete. And it's like, wow, this scene, they get it. And I thought it was fantastic then. But boy, Disa stole the show then, and she stole the show again when it finally aired. She is fantastic.
She's amazing. I want to talk about something, apart from that, she's amazing. I could say that all night. But I want to talk about something that she says that I think is just so interesting, and that is resonance.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
can't wait to hear her sing, but yeah.
Well, apart from that, the idea of resonating with the rock, one that tells you about their relationship with the rock. And that calls back in the Lord of the Rings, when they're talking about Gimli saying what the dwarves would do with the glittering caves. They wouldn't go in there with hammers flying. They would maybe take a whole day and do one little knock, and would just craft it, because that's how they are with the stone, with the mountain. But what she's saying here is she actually is in a relationship with the rock. She sings and she listens.
Yeah, she says she wants to hear their story, the story
right,
that they tell.
Exactly. And to me, I mean, this was beautiful. Yes. And then she said something I thought, it's a throwaway line, but I have a feeling it's going to be important.
Oh, I know which one you're going to.
Oh, yes. So she says that the song and the listening, it tells her, where to actually mine the mountain, where to leave it alone.
Yeah, she says, I think where to mine, where to dig tunnels, and where to leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
that was foreboding for sure.
It's that last bit, because I think this is going to be one of those nobody listens to Melian moments.
Nobody listens to Disa moments. Right. You may very well be right. I will not be surprised at all.
Yeah, because if the dwarves are going to dig too greedily and too deep, just to paraphrase that line,
yes,
then clearly nobody is listening to Disa, who would have told them.
Though, of course, they shouldn't be waking the Balrog, because the Balrog doesn't wake until the Third Age.
The Balrog that we know, Durin's Bane. That's true,
Durin's Bane.
Yeah.
It could be.
There could be,
or there could be something else.
Though there are only a handful of them, but we'll get into the whole. We'll get into the Balrog thing when there's a Balrog to talk about. For now, there's just one more shot in this whole thread, and that is that shot at the end after Elrond is left. We got to include this in the storyline. Is Durin with his father, also Durin? There can be no trust between hammer and rock, and then we get the strongbox.
But before that, there's that great line where Durin the Third says to Durin the Fourth, "You've always had sandstone in your granite."
I love that line.
It's another sound clip we need to get.
That is such a dwarven insult. Oh, you've always had sandstone
brilliant,
in your
isn't
granite.
It? Yes.
It
it's
means
an
you're
insult,
soft,
if you like.
Right?
Yeah. That's an
it
insult.
absolutely means you're soft. I mean, sandstone, versus granite, of course. Yeah.
Yep.
You've always had a soft spot. You've always been, you've had a little bit of this weakness, but there can be no trust between hammer and rock.
Mm-hmm.
Here, there, obviously, he's talking about between elves and dwarves.
Yes, I think Durin 4 is going to have daddy issues.
I think so. I just hope they don't have Durin's Bane issues. Strongbox, that's got to be True Silver, right? That's got to be Moria. They're not going to try to find the Arkenstone in Moria.
No, they found Mithril.
They found Mithril. It has to
I had somebody say, they found Mithras' Silmaril. They will lose me 1,000 times over if they found a Silmaril.
No.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so with you. That's not possible.
We know from the Tale of Years in Appendix B that one of the big significant events, it was in like 750 or something, was the discovery of Mithril. And that's what leads to the working together, the relationship between the Eregion elves and the dwarves. Yeah. And they're setting it up for that, right?
It leads to the massive economy in Moria and Holland.
I'm guessing what's going to happen is that, Elrond's going to go to the dwarves and say, we need your help with Celebrimbor's project. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, we have the thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
But we want in on some of this crafting that you're doing.
Yeah.
And and the combination of the greatest furnace that's ever built with the Mithril.
Yep. And if you like it, you better put
with
a ring
the arrival of Anatar.
Better put a ring on it. Good one. I like that. Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Rings of Power wrap-up, and far and away the longest. I think it might end up being as long as our other 14 combined. But please be sure to join us again next time. That's going to be this Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, when I think we're going to finally see Númenor.
Oh, we better do. We've been waiting for that for how long now?
Years, yeah.
It feels like years. Okay, well, we want to take a moment to thank the team that helps make this show better. Editor Jordan Ranels, Barleyman, Becca Davis, social media manager Casey Hilsey, and website guru Phil Dean.
Speaking of the website, please make sure to give us a visit at ringswrapup.com. You'll find show notes, outtakes eventually, if we have them. Of course we're going to have them.
Of course we're going to have them. What are you kidding?
And of course our online storefront and more.
And definitely check out our library page. So while this show is about the Amazon adaptation, the three of us are fans of the books first and foremost, and we've provided links for you to get nearly every book we mention on the show. We do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you in advance.
And one last thing as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, how far you think Galadriel could really swim to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard, you can send us audio of you asking your question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just make sure to still send the question to Barliman, okay? Barliman's become a lot more reliable over the years, but we do get a lot of mail. So we'll get to you as soon as we can. And your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
Indeed. As always, though, this has been far too short a time, even at 2.5 hours, to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.